Well, it's a very warm welcome. Hello, good evening, and here we are for round 2 of the Coach Dave Super Sprint Series. An amazing move, an amazing start to the season. Joining myself, Dave Christie, in the comms box is Ewan O'Leary. And Ewan, I had it all planned out what I was going to be saying there, and just thinking back to Brands Hatch to round 1 of the championship, and I instantly lost my words because it was everything that you could have possibly scripted for that evening went right out of the window, with Jardier taking the win, the number 75 Yas Heat Richard Mill team taking the win, then losing the win, then being re-awarded it later on after appeal, and then George Boothby having a hardware disconnect. So you've got some big boots to fill tonight, Ian.
Yeah, thanks for that, Pressure. But no, yeah, it's that's great. But no, it certainly was. Certainly hectic, certainly entertaining. But that's all we want. That's exactly what we want from this kind of series. A bit of midweek sprint racing doesn't hurt anybody, and it's very entertaining indeed. A couple of 1 hour races, and yeah, even a reverse grid in there as well. And it helps to set up a championship like we can see here. Very early on, of course. But yeah, the points are already distributed fairly evenly, nicely evenly, I would say, heading into round 2.
Yes, good start to the season for Williams Esports there for Darren McCormack and Tinko van der Velde, taking some strong performances from Brands Hatch. Jardier Community taking that second race win of Valentin Barrier and Max Voitna. And then in third place is the SimGrid.pro by Vides machine, Yigar Ogorodnikov behind the wheel. Now he will, I would imagine, certainly did have a teammate last week, and we'll double check who he's got out there tonight. And then it's the Yas Heat Richard Melee outfit of George Boothby and Jaroslav Honzik. Again, they had a interesting, I think we'll say, outing at Brands Hatch last time out. BMW G2 Esports in 5th place, Robbie Stapleford and Charlie Crossland. That's going to be my one to watch tonight, you and Robbie Stapleford, ridiculously fast young lad. FFS Racing in 6th place, Yas Heat Pirelli in 7th, Prime E Racing in 8th, SimGrid.pro by Vides in 9th position. Then RHG Esports, that Romain Grosjean's RHG outfit, in 10th position. But as you said, 36 points separating the top 10, and those outside the top 10 not that far away as well, Ewan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very close indeed, as you'd expect, really, from the first couple of races. But no, we've got some very high-class teams here, as you were mentioning, picking out certain drivers. But just having a look and reading off some of those team names, you start to think, wow, we've got some real big hitters here, like Williams Esports, for example, Yas Heat, BMW G2 Esports, to name a few. So yeah, there's some very, very top quality teams, top quality drivers out here. And it's staying relatively close. What I have noticed from the Brands Hatch race is that no team was able to stay really, really consistent. Third and a second for Williams Esports is not bad at all. That's maybe you could say that they were sort of consistent. The Jardier Community 44 car as well, with a 9th and a 1st and a couple of 4ths as well for the 41 car. But other than that, the top 3, the rest of them kind of either having one good race and one bad race, or two kind of middle-ish, mediocre races. And maybe we'll be looking to see a few more of those teams having a better time of things here, although it's not like the unpredictability of it is going to be taken out of it exactly, because the weather that you can see on these kind of panoramic shots, if you like, representative of what we got in the server right now. So it's going to be a difficult evening.
It's a very, very confused clone of a pit lane engineer that we can see there. But what is not confusing is this series that we have got on the go for you. We've got 3 splits taking part in this championship at the very same time. So there's the Pro split, the Silver split, and the AM split, which means that basically everyone can take part. 2 1 hour races. That second race is going to be a top 10 reverse grid. We're on round 2 of 5, and then we head to Barcelona, as you can see at the bottom there, Bathurst in April, which is going to be just absolutely incredible, and then Imola on the 28th of April to decide the season. But the buzz that has been going off on the SimGrid just now is that qualifying is underway for the next big thing here at the SimGrid, the newly announced Coach Dave 1000. That is going to be a massive, massive event. Season 1 kicks off on the 2nd of April. 5 1,000 kilometre, aka 6-hour races taking place at Barcelona, Imola, Nürburgring, Silverstone and Monza. 44 teams of 3 drivers over each of the splits. So like here, a pro split, a silver split and an AM split. That is going to be an incredible event there, Ewan, and I think that we're almost guaranteed in that one, as well as tonight, for some fiery racing.
Yeah, it's a very good idea, actually, the new series, the 1000, to incorporate 1,000 kilometres into each race, and yeah, the 5 races and so on and so forth. A little bit of a different take on the endurance series that we've seen in the past and things like that. So yeah, looking forward to that, and I'm sure a lot of these teams that we'll be seeing tonight will be present in that one here as well, because yeah, there's a lot of places up for grabs, and as you mentioned, the guys are already trying to qualify themselves for that, as well as all the other things going on at the SimGrid at the moment.
Yeah, certainly is. So we're almost ready to go down to the grid then to see the qualifying going on, and my God, Ewan, that is a wet track down there. We've got yellow flags as the number 11 has gone off of the track there, but wow, that looks very, I'm trying to think of the word here, mildly moist, I think we'll put it.
Yeah, it's pretty wet out there at the moment, very wet indeed, and this circuit is difficult enough on your own, really. It's very twisty, difficult, not much runoff on the exit of these corners, very fast as well, of course, but when you take away or put in, should I say, the wet weather conditions, it makes it a whole lot more difficult. It doesn't affect these particular cars as much as maybe some others, like if for example it rained on the F1 weekend that we had here a few weekends ago, a few months ago now. You know, because these cars have got a bit more mechanical grip and keep the tyre temperature in there. However, it's still going to affect them quite dramatically, and it's still going to make this challenge very difficult for the drivers indeed.
Yep, certainly is. So 10 minutes or so, 11 and a half minutes left to go in qualifying here, and again, I'm just looking at these conditions. They look absolutely treacherous. No sign of the rain abating whatsoever. James Baldwin very briefly jumping up to the top of the timing tower just now, but that is almost immediately dethroned by Nick Hubin and Jonathan Riley as well. Now, one thing that we always see in qualifying sessions, Ewan, and that we always talk about, is these drivers that are out there just now putting in a sort of banker lap, a safety lap, to make sure that they've got at least a time on the board, with conditions not looking like they're going to get any better, but potentially getting worse. How important do you think that is at such an early stage of qualifying?
I think in my experience anyway, the banker lap is certainly more of a thing that I would factor in the dry weather conditions, where you know very precisely the maximum amount of performance that you can get out of your car, and you kind of know what you're doing more. There's more unknowns here, so I feel like a banker lap is less important, because, as you say, the track might get quicker as we go along, in which case you need to keep with the pace and keep moving with the track. And if it's going to get slower, then you need to be out there on it as soon as possible. So in either case, because one of them is going to happen in these wet weather conditions, it's very unlikely going to stay exactly the same, with this amount of cars in it especially. You do need to just keep moving with the track, keep going as quickly as possible. Not expecting to see too many people come into the pit lane either, to be quite honest. You want to keep that tyre temperature, keep the rhythm going, which is more important than in the dry. It's more difficult to turn on and off qualifying pace in the wet compared to the dry. So I'm expecting to see these guys stay out here for a long time, to be honest, and just go as quickly as possible for the entire time. Yeah,
of course, because things like tyre wear and tyre degradation almost non-existent in these conditions. The track's still very warm though, 21 degrees air temperature, track temperature is 25 degrees Celsius, so again, they're not going to be working those tyres too hard. If anything, they're going to be wanting to keep the heat in those tyres. But we're currently watching Darren McCormack, then your championship leader in that number 88 Williams Esports as well. And like many other drivers and teams, Williams Esports actually have their very own stream with their own commentators and everything like that going on. So again, just shows you how seriously these teams are taking this championship.
Yeah, taking it very, very seriously indeed, and taking sim racing very seriously these days as well. We talk about this quite a lot, but it has evolved in the last few years, and yeah, it's getting to really quite high level now. But look how close this qualifying session is at the moment. 65,000 to cover the top 5 right now. You might think that because it's wet, then margins between the best and worst drivers might be a little bit bigger, but I don't really think that's the case. All these guys seem to be absolutely on it, whatever the weather at the moment.
What I hate about these qualifying sessions, Ewan, is that it gives me a false sense of confidence. I look at these times and I'm like, right, where do I think I would slot in? And I'm like, okay, maybe about 15th or 20th, and then I realise, no, I'd be still 4 seconds off the pace. It's it's a little bit sobering, but an incredible show of just the level of commitment of these drivers, the parity in which these drivers compete as well, but also just how well Kuros have done at trying to balance this field out. I mean, the fact that we've got, 21 drivers separated by less than a second, and I always look to that sort of stat, but even then, the fact that we've got 6 drivers within 1/10 of a second, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it really is outrageous, especially in conditions like these. As I said earlier, there are more unknowns in wet weather qualifying sessions, so in the dry everybody knows their performance, and we do tend to see this quite a lot, especially at the SimGrid here on ACC, very, very close qualifying sessions always. But in the wet weather conditions, driver error comes into play so much more. That doesn't even seem to matter to these guys either, because they're just so on top of their game right now that everybody's very close. And even James Baldwin there, you can see him struggling. One of the favourites you might maybe outline at the start of this session, outside of the top 10, just been pushed outside of the top 10. So yeah, it really is quite remarkable.
There we go then, 6.5 minutes left to go in this qualifying session, and it's important to see how this is going to pan out as we see Raymond Mooney here in the 777 machine down there in 9th position for Sim Racing Masterclass. And again, I'm just thinking about this track here and how twisty and technical this track is in these conditions. With the level of performance and the level of skill being so intense, as Bischoff in that Porsche going 1/10 of a second faster than Raymond Mooney there. Wow, that's certainly lit up the timing screens there. But with the level of performance being so narrow between all of these drivers here, Ewan, how important is it, do you think, to not only qualify well, but say to qualify in that top 10?
Yeah, I think whatever the weather on this circuit, I would definitely be saying that qualifying towards the front is very, very important here. It's difficult to overtake, there's no question about that. It's not quite as difficult as we've seen with some other categories of car in recent years, but because the GT3 is pretty good at racing, but even these cars do struggle to get past one another at this circuit. It's just the nature of the track, really. The biggest braking zone being down in turn 1, of course. It's not a hugely tight corner at the end of it either, and you can defend yourself quite well on the outside as well. So it's quite difficult to get through here, in all honesty. If you're looking to make your way through the field, it's going to be very, very difficult indeed. And there are a lot of cars out here as well, so in terms of staying out of trouble, you really want to be up towards the front as well, to be ahead of any potential incidents early on.
Yeah, you really, really do. Just looking at the number 42 Simware.pro by Vides of Alexander Novikov sharing that car with Mikhail Baikov. That Bentley up to the top of the timing tower then, pole position provisionally 1/10 of a second ahead of Bischoff in that 977 machine. But Bischoff here could be immediately firing back with an answer. We'll find out because there's just a couple of more corners to go, and then he will be back onto the start straight. He is basically around about 0.2 of a second up halfway through this lap. A little bit of a wiggle from the rear end of that Porsche, showing how difficult it is to get any sort of traction on the racetrack here. The other thing that comes into mind here, Ewan, is traffic. And I've noticed it on SimGrid, seems to be really, really well, but I've seen it in other servers and in other championships where drivers don't tend to be too quick at getting off the racing line if they've abandoned the lap, and that can have a pretty huge effect.
It certainly can, and it's something that everybody's going to have to be really careful of throughout this race, really. Throughout this qualifying session, I should say, because obviously you could find yourself with a penalty as well, which is never good. But Marco Bischoff right now comes through the final corner, and we'll see if he can get anywhere near Novikov. Might well be able to, really, looking at his improvements so far, but it's not quite enough. He's only 300ths away.
Here we go then, and that is a fantastic effort. As round the final couple of corners, then Uniself lining for Grippax Engineering in the number 49 in that McLaren, then a car that's not usually done, or rather in previous seasons hasn't been known for its wet weather capabilities, but lately in the past year or so that thing has become an absolute rocket ship, and you can see that with the fact that Uniself lining straight up into 4th position at the lead of that little McLaren charge. 5 McLarens in the that 5th to 9th position, sorry, 4th to 9th position there. So Uniself lining, Chris Sever, Raymond Mooney, you've got Riley, James Baldwin and Lukashik all in there as well. What do you think, Ewan, that is that makes that McLaren so successful in these conditions?
I'm not entirely sure, personally. I think, first of all, the law of averages. There are a lot of McLarens in this championship for a start. It might well be the most numerous, actually. I haven't counted, but I think it might well be. They've got a fairly large showing across, so the law of averages, first of all, suggests that it will do well. But yeah, I don't really know in terms of wet weather conditions. It could also be the circuit, in all honesty. This one, obviously quite similar to Brands Hatch, so you'd expect something similar to last time, but the McLarens did struggle a little bit at Brands Hatch, so who knows, really. They might have found something in the wet weather, and if it dries up a little bit later on, we might see them falling back and we'll have our answer, but for now it's a bit of an unknown, really.
Yeah, we're certainly a way to find out. A very good evening to everyone that is on the YouTube chat. I just clicked onto the window and actually discovered that everyone was still there. Ira Cosman making an absolute nuisance of themselves as always, as well as AKM Racing and Alara Kunzlin. Dominic Blyer also giving us a little bit of attention tonight as well. We feel very, very blessed to have Dominic having a little look. But crazy weather conditions here at Zandvoort. It's still Alexander Novikov at the top of that timing tower there. The 49 brings out the yellow flag. That's Uniself lining that brings that out there, and the 44 as well, who ends up going back to pit lane. But here comes Jonathan Riley. He is making his way around towards the penultimate corner. He could potentially be taken anywhere from 5th to 7th position. He's about 10th up at the moment, a little bit wide going out of that final corner there, but still looking very, very good indeed. Can Riley jump up to the top of the McLarens there as a big power slide out the corner there, and that is not going to happen. But the SimGrid.pro by VDES machine of Novikov, pole position, Ewan, and just 9 seconds left to go.
It looks like he's going to hold out for this one. Very good lap in the end. The times just kept tumbling, really, but he was just about able to do it. The time's just stalling ever so slightly in these final few moments, so Novikov able to just about hold on to first place there, unless anybody from behind can do anything here. It doesn't look like it, although there are going to be some improvements into the top 10 for a GCWR Aston Martin. there, and a few others coming across the line now as well. But yeah, very close as we've mentioned. But it's not a be all and end all. You do have to get to the end of these races. You do have to get to the end of them in the lead, of course, and that is easier said than done. So yeah, long race ahead. 1 hour doesn't seem like very long, but it is plenty of scope for things to go wrong. And of course the driver change as well, which adds yet another layer.
Certainly does. Ewan, I've got to be honest, I'm very, very concerned about Darren McCormack in that number 80 Williams machine, because our championship leaders are down in 28th position on the grid. That is an absurd place to start with, given that they finished on the podium in both the races last time out. So wow, that is very, very concerning to say the very least. But James Baldwin comes out the final corner. Can he improve? He was 13th, goes up to 7th position, gets to 10th, and that is a huge jump into the top 10 for the McLaren. And he will be very, very happy with that Veloci McLaren 720S. Sven Hettich tried to make his way at the final corner, and I think he's just thought, no, I'm just going to go and get a pot noodle instead. He's off to the pits and is done and dusted with qualifying. So there we go. Ewan, that was a qualifying session and a half there, but the number 42 of Alexander Novikov taking pole position.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very good lap in the end from the Bentley, and yeah, straight through into pole position. Very good performance from those guys. Just a word on James Baldwin there, who jumped up late on. I feel like it kind of highlighted something for me anyway about how to drive in these conditions on this circuit, especially because we were watching that lap a lot of the way through. It didn't look that quick to me as I was watching it, but it did turn out to be quite quick when the times came up. So I feel like slower might be quicker. Slow and steady wins the race and all that. In these wet weather conditions, maybe not quite as aggressive, not quite as extravagant driving. May pay off a little bit. Bit smooth and steady might well be the call. But who knows, really? It's all a bit of learning for everybody in these conditions, because it's just so unpredictable.
Yeah, it certainly is. Here we go then, the cars onto the grid for the start of race number 1. Remember that there's going to be 2 races out on the Zandvoort circuit tonight. That track looking very, very damp and very grey and very miserable, to be sure. But anyway, here is your starting order for the first race of the evening then. In pole position, Alexander Novikov lines up beside the 449 of Mikhail Statsenko. It's then the 977 Porsche of Jonas van Druyten alongside the 34 of Janis Sherdakis. Row 3 is going to be Nicholas Hubin and Vyacheslav Abeladze in the 41 the 41 Mercedes. So it's a Mercedes 5 and 6, P7 and 8, and this is a 4-car McLaren lockout. It's the 28 of Eamon Murphy, the 91 of Chris Sever, Alu Gobi in the 49 and Raymond Mooney in the 777. That is 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. P11 and P12 is Dan King and Jonathan Riley. P13 and P14 is Florian Becker and Mikhail Novikowski. P15 and P16 is Chris Hartveld and David Pertile. P17 for Brian Lewis. P18 for George Boothby, P19 for Felix Arndt in the 77. It's the 44 Bentley of Valentin Barrier in 20th position. Ivan Shermantinsky in the 81 Bentley in 21st. 22nd is Maximilian Walmuth in the 71 Aston Martin. Robbie Stapleford, one that I did say to watch out for, not having a great qualifying session in the 62 BMW, down in 23rd. 24th is Killian Ryan Meenan in the 123 Aston Martin. 25th is Marius Twarzidlo in the 7 McLaren. It's the 72 Ferrari of David McKell in 26th position. 27th is Daniela Sherepinen in the 888 Mercedes. The 80 Williams Mercedes of Darren McCormack down in 28th. 29th is Florian Durkop in the 995 Aston Martin. The 919 Mercedes of Oleg Zolobov in 30th position. and then it is Manos Gerardis in the 31 McLaren in 31st place. The 32nd spot is taken by the Bentley of the 521 of Stefano Bonsignori. The 33rd position is Sheldon Muscat in the number 9 Aston Martin. 34th position goes to the Bentley 486 of Gabor Sarozzi, and at the back of the grid in the number 11 McLaren, hoping to make some big headways in tonight, is Paul Batty. Of course, it's a team game tonight. They have got their other drivers in, so the drivers that I have listed might not be the ones that are behind the wheel. We will get an update on that as the race goes live. But the pace lap gets underway. The cars making their way round, and it looks, if anything, Ewan, like these conditions are deteriorating.
Yeah, if anything, but it looks very similar to the qualifying conditions. You know, when you can see rain, it's quite hard. Look at that, there, dear me. Looking from the aerial shot down on Zandvoort, very defined rain there, and that is really when it is raining quite hard. But yeah, there's no rule to saying that the guys who qualified can't not take the start in race 1, if you see what I mean. So they can get their other driver in. So don't be alarmed if we do see some different drivers down the left-hand side immediately, because those who qualified don't have to start race 1, but each driver does have to start one of the races out of the 2 here today. So you do have to be good at both. You do sometimes get teams with a driver that thinks that I don't really want to do the race start to, it's a little bit too stressful for me, but you do have to be good at both starting and finishing races to be a winner in this series, and that is a nice change, to be honest. So yeah, we'll be seeing lots of different drivers chopping and changing, but it's going to be very difficult for them getting used to these conditions, which will always be changing, as we've already said.
And the other thing, as we come around the second half of the circuit here, the track, we've not spoken in depth actually about the track as they come through turn 10 here, this sweeping left-hander. You know, Zandvoort has a wonderful, wonderful mix of bankings of you know, cambers and tilt into and out of these corners here. It really does mean that every single lap is going to be a challenge for these drivers, doesn't it?
Certainly does. We've got less banks and stuff than we would maybe normally. But I think this only benefits these cars, especially in the wet weather conditions. These cars are a handful through the final couple of corners in a way that they wouldn't be in future years when the banking is introduced. So yeah, we've certainly got a very, very interesting hour ahead of us, and then another hour after that. It's going to be a very, very difficult evening for everybody, but hopefully a fun one.
Well, let's get this underway, shall we? Because we are ready to go racing here. The 42 Simware.Pro by VDES machine of Alexander Novikov leads Maciej Malinowski, Tortellini himself in the 449 Yaz Heat Pirelli side by side as they come 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. Getting ready to go green here at Zandvoort any second now. We hold our breath and away we go. The green light flies and we go racing for the first time tonight. The first hour of racing. Remember, it's a reverse top 10 grid after this one. Straight up the inside into turn 1 then, and no issues whatsoever for that number 42. And believe it or not, Ewan, it looks like all of the cars safely through turn 1. We'll hold our breath to see if that continues to be the case. But again, a momentum-based track here, because what you'll find is that the cars will try and attack, and if they make a mistake, they'll end up getting sucked back to the cars behind them, and that is the problem that Maciej Malinowski having right now, because Marco Bischoff in that third place Porsche trying to hound him for everything that he's worth right now, and that Porsche at this very early stage right now looks very, very good. But we've got a yellow flag, I believe, is that the 383 that brings out the yellow flag there. They get going again. In fact, no, it wasn't. So we'll get an idea on that in just a second. But let's keep our eye out on the race leader right now as the time and tyre tries to sort itself out. Alexander Novikov. It looks, you, and if I'm quite honest with you, Alexander Novikov looks like he's starting to stretch away, almost about a second now.
Yeah, already he seems to be getting a bit of a margin over the rest, but I think it's mainly because Malinowski's under quite a lot of pressure at the moment from all of these guys, namely Bischoff actually, who's applying the most of that pressure as things stand. coming out of the turn 11 there into, turn 12 there, into the final couple of corners. And there's a lot of pressure on that Mercedes at the moment. It's allowing Novikov to get away. And by the way, a little bit earlier, it does look like we got a clean run through turn 1 and 2, but turn 3 a few of these guys came unstuck for the first time.
And not for the last, I'm pretty sure. Right, let's have a look at this, because Malinowski under real pressure from Marco Bischoff in that Porsche. A little bit of a wiggle there from Malinowski. He is struggling with these wet conditions. Did very well to get that car up so high into second place there, but Novikov is gone. Novikov is already away by about a second and a half. This is incredible stuff to see, such a gap. And the thing is that Marco Bischoff now immediately needs to get past this Mercedes, because the more, as you said, the longer that he's stuck behind that Mercedes, the longer that Novikov is going to be able to stretch away here.
Yeah, certainly, as we've seen the 34 car just in the background of these shots. The 34 car has actually gone off the road at turn 3 as well, so that's proving very, very tricky. But you're right, Bischoff does need to get through here quite quickly in for that second place. Let's see what happened at the start though. This is the chaos back in the pack at turn 3. It's a big stack up on the inside line, and it's always expected. The concertina effect in full effect there, and too many cars in a small space there, really.
Oh, that's... I'm glad it was some time since I'd eaten there, Ewan, because that was not a pleasant thing to be watching. But nonetheless, as we come in to start our second lap, your race leader Alexander Novikov in that number 42, sharing the car with Mikhail Baikov, just streaking away now, 2.5 seconds. He has done an amazing start to this race to come round the final corner, and this is it now. You're going to have to see Marco Bischoff. It'd be amazing actually if we can see on board with Marco and just watching how he gets onto the tail. There we go then, right in the spray of Malinowski. Does he think into turn 1? No, because the Mercedes just has the draw on the straight line. And this is a really difficult position for Marco Bischoff, because he needs to get past, he wants to get past, but it's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean, these guys aren't exactly going too slowly, to be honest, because you can see the way they've left the rest of the field behind. I know that the 34 car going off will have helped that, of course, but look at the way those guys are behind. It's these three for second, and then there's a big battle going on for fifth behind that, but they're a long way behind these guys. If we really were seeing a very slow Malinowski, then we would see a much bigger train for second place, but we're not right now. I think it's partly a testament to Novikov and what a job he's doing at the front of the field, but also those three guys between second, third, and fourth, because they're not exactly going slowly in the opening moments of this race, and this behind is completely chaotic.
Yeah, this is a straight up fist brawl, street fight, punchy face affair going on right now, with about 7 cars involved in this one. You've got Christopher, David Pertile, that's Unisalv Leinen that we're watching for Griphax Engineering. Behind is Luke Czech, you've got Boothby, Hartfeld, Sherwatinsky, all involved in that one. And then behind them, you've got another brawl as well. You've got Lewis Mikowski, you've got Sven Hetich, Robbie Stapleford, making some big moves actually up there in that... Robbie Stapleford in the number 62 to BMW. Now, what has happened actually to our championship leaders in that 80? They've gone back even further. Tara McCormack in 34th position. Ewan, what the hell has happened to Williams Esports?
Well, I'm at a loss as well. I don't quite know, but something, nothing good has happened to them, that's for sure. In the opening moments of this race, they're a good half lap down already on the whole of the field, so they clearly have been involved in some problems somewhere along the line. It looks like they went off at the very first corner of this race, quite possibly, by the sounds of things. But yeah, I mean, this is why I said earlier on that you do need to qualify up towards the front, not just because it's difficult to overtake here, as Marco Bischoff is proving inadvertently, but also to avoid trouble, and that's exactly what Williams Esports haven't been able to do.
That's a mighty F. And just looking at Maciej Malinowski now, he's starting to get into his rhythm, because that gap has opened up a little bit to Marco Bischoff behind him, 0.5 of a second, who is now ahead of Nick Hubin. And yeah, that is Yeah, I think that battle for second, third, and fourth has opened up now. Some excellent intel from our production team behind the scenes. Thank you to Michael Hamlet from SimGrid for pointing this one out. Williams have done a pit stop, so Darren McCormack has been in pit lane, and that would explain why he is so far back. We have a yellow flag involving the number 9. That is, of course, let's actually get an ID on them. They're very far down the order. That is Sheldon Muscat again. I really do feel so bad for Sheldon Muscat, because I think I saw him do a good race at once about a year and a half ago. Ever since then, if there's an accident or if there's a collision, somehow, some way, Sheldon Muscat finds it, and it just upsets me so much, because he is the nicest guy you could possibly speak to, and he's like a magnet for other people having problems around him.
It does get like, you do sometimes feel like you get into bits of form like that it roughly evens out over a season between different teams and different drivers and so on. So yeah, while it can feel like you are constantly attracting trouble, a lot of the time you will have a run without knowing it soon around the corner where you don't hit any trouble at all. So just got to sit patient until that kind of run comes here. But yeah, troubles for a lot of these guys a little bit further back. You can see cars strewn across the road almost all over the circuit already in this race, and that no doubt has been exaggerated by these conditions that we're seeing everybody battle here today. But Bischoff still struggling to get through. Malinowski at that Mercedes still not slow. I would refuse to call it slow, because look at the way they've managed to get rid of the 221 Mercedes just in behind. Malinowski's not driving slowly here. It's just that Bischoff is that little bit quicker, but not able to get through all at the same time.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is we know Tortolini is one fast driver. He wouldn't be in the championships that he is in. As we see side by side, then that's it. That's Marco Bischoff's corner, no! And there we go. Tortolini sent straight off to the scene of the accident. There was contact on the inside. James Baldwin has got a penalty as well, and Maciek Malinowski. Well, I can imagine the air inside that car turning a little blue as up the inside goes Marco Bischoff to try and take the position back from Nick Hubin there. Oh dear, I don't think that Marco Bischoff is going to be on Maciek Malinowski's Christmas card list this year, Ewan. Very early in the year, I know, but I think that's going to have taken him off.
Yeah, certainly going to be a bit of animosity between the two of them, quite possibly. After all that, it's hard to say really whether that was Bischoff's fault or not. Did he do anything drastically wrong there? Was he in the wrong to stick his nose up the inside into the final corner? It's very, very difficult to tell from first glance. And let's have a second glance at it, shall we? While we're here, a little bit wide from Malinowski though. Misses the apex of the final corner. It's a good run from the Porsche to get his nose down there, the inside, but he's not quite kept it to the right hand side, maybe as much as you would like to see on the inside of that final corner. There was a little bit of space to the right hand side there. He probably should have used it. I think he was certainly within his rights to get alongside there, and he was given the space by Malinowski, to be fair, but Bischoff didn't quite use all the road on the right hand side when he really needed to, because it is narrow there. The line is narrow. Let's see if the onboard tells us anything. Was he really struggling oversteer, understeer wise, or was he just not quite keeping it as tight as maybe he should have? I think he didn't quite get into that corner as much as he should have, and then obviously the understeer didn't help. But yeah, Bischoff, a bit of a mistake there from him, really.
I have to agree, actually. I think he's went into that corner perfectly entitled to make the move, and I think the water standing on the inside has caused that car extra understeer, and he's just accidentally drifted off into the side of the car on his left there, Maciek Malinowski, and huge drop for Maciek down there in 15th position. Again, that's what it looked like, but that's why we've got stewards here. That's why we've got race control. They get to look over that instant from all the angles. We're not. We just say opinion. That's the great thing about it, Ian, is that if we get the opinion wrong, who was that in the wall? That was Samir Ibrahimi. It had a little bit of a brush with the wall there. I think he saved it. I think he loses the place there to Felix Rupert. No, he's kept on with it. but that was a bit of a dodgy moment there, going into that into the wall there. And the other thing with that contact is the fact that Maciej Malinowski now essentially has been thrown to the wolves.
He has at this stage. This is exactly where he didn't want to be, really. And once again, he's backing up a train. Oh, and down the inside, very nearly from that 154 of Chris Hartwell. And luckily, didn't quite go for that one. But yeah, this is exactly where Malinowski didn't want to be. That's why they tried so hard in qualifying to make sure they were out of this kind of mess. And what do you know, they found themselves in a lot of trouble already in this race because of an incident a little bit early on. So they'll be very frustrated by that. But they've just got to get on with it from this point and try and get up the order as much as possible. If they can get in that top 10, of course, the reverse grid will serve them quite well, and they might be ones to watch in in race 2.
So here's Samir Ibrahimi. Oh, and that is a what we call on the internet a crunch. That was a big hit into the wall. He gets going with it, and a little bit of damage to the car. Meanwhile, Shermatinsky and Malinowski fighting it out as well, and this is not the position that I can imagine that Tortolini was going to be trying to fight for, the 15th position, because the question is, how can they keep that position? But Vyacheslav Abeladze for the sister car, the SimGrid Pro by Vides, up in the 4th position, and Baldwin all over the back of that car trying to hold on to that position. But that is going to be another position lost for James Baldwin, and I think that Riley and Mooney in the other McLarens are struggling as well, although we're just hearing, Ewan, that Baldwin was ordered to give that position back by the stewards to Abeladze.
Yeah, we didn't see any reasons as to why, but we do know at least that Baldwin was ordered to get that position back. We do also know that Baldwin's going to be getting quite a heavy penalty at the end of this one, because Eamon Murphy's pedals have broken, and so Baldwin will be on his own, and there will be further penalties to serve for him. So not a great day by the looks of things already for the 28, but Baldwin looking to just have a bit of fun here and just do his best out of a pretty poor situation which he's found himself in. As we go back on board a little bit further down, this is the TF Racing Souvlaki car that had an issue early on. They're running inside the top 10 not so long ago, but they're clearly not anymore, and yeah, they've been forced to fight their way through the field as well.
Yeah, certainly have, and all the way down in 27th position in Konstantinos Kontogiannis currently trying to catch up to the 919 ahead of Oleg Zolobov then in that 26th position battle. Daniel Sherapinin in 25th, and Samir Ibrahimi just up in front, and you can see the cars twitching very nervously. In front of him is Oleg Zolobov for the SMP Racing esports machine, sharing that car with Igor Murtazov. But also, I mean, when you've got a car that in front of you is doing that sort of thing, Ewan, how comfortable do you feel, do you think, or how comfortable do you think that the drivers tonight are going to be, knowing that the cars are maybe a little bit unstable?
Oh yeah, not very. It's the simple answer, but I think when you're at this kind of level, and when you've been doing it for this long, the more experienced guys especially will be more familiar with the feeling of just, you know, you begin to put the trust in the driver in front of you, really, especially if you do know them, or at least you've raced with them before. You'll begin to put the trust in the driver in front of you, because at the end of the day, if you backed off ever so slightly every time you thought someone ahead of you was going to have a slightly wayward moment, then, you know, you'd be backing off coming into most corners, especially in these conditions. So it's something, you learn to get used to, and these guys certainly are, especially in these conditions where things can go wrong so easily.
Well, here we go then. Quarter of an hour has come and gone. We are 15 minutes into this 1 hour race, and as it stands then, it is still the number 42 car of Alexander Novikov in the lead of this race, although Marco Bischoff has just done the fastest lap there, 143.590, 2/10 faster. But can you believe our race leader is 5.5 seconds ahead of the entire field?
Well, the qualifying performance certainly suggested that it was possible, and yeah, we're seeing it here. I mean, slightly helped, of course, by the incident. Oh, speaking of incidents, goodness me, there's certainly one going on in the background there, turn 1. But yes, for the lead of the race, not hardly surprising, given what we saw in qualifying, given the battling we saw as well. But yeah, it's all down to Bischoff now, really, to see if he wants to try and get this race victory. Of course, he's got a lot of chasing to do.
Yeah, Marius Sforzito it was in the back there in the number 7. We've also got more yellow flags. That's the 78, I believe it is. That is,
there it is.
Yep, just off in the background there. It was the 70, apologies about that. So that is Riley from P6, and that is a huge blow for Jonathan Riley in that number 70 Volante Racing Assetto Sim Sports machine, sharing the car with Vanko Dimitrov. But let's have a look here on into turn 1 then, and up the inside. That's a little boop and a little boop and a little boop and a little. Oh my goodness me! That's how quickly it can go from hero to zero in this sim. And we've seen it many times. And do you know what? You're laughing if you're not involved in it, and you can make up some places. But if you're involved in something like that, yeah, you get a little bit angry a little bit quickly.
I mean, yeah, it was just a little bit careless from the Ferrari, to be quite honest. Going into turn number 1 there, just a little bit too late on the brakes, sailing into through the middle of the corner, really, getting a bit close to the car in front and just tapping them around. And it doesn't take much to unsettle these cars in these conditions at a corner like that one. So yeah, it's a little bit careless, really. And when it's the fault of another driver, it just tends to frustrate you a little bit more as well. So yeah, that's going to be annoying. And of course, those who got involved as a result of that, a lot of contact was made down there at turn 1. There's going to be a few cars bearing some of the scars of that for the next for the next 5 minutes at least, when the pit window will open with 35 minutes to go for a 10-minute mandatory driver change.
And just noticing that, Marco Bischoff then bringing that gap down, did another fastest lap there, half a second faster than Alexander Novikov. Maybe things have peaked a little bit too early for that Bentley, because that Porsche, now that it's been released from the McLaren that was in front of, the Mercedes that was in front of Maciej Malinowski, now he's able to absolutely eat into that gap in front, and that is going to come down to just over 4 seconds, I think, in the next lap or so. So we could see a fight for the lead happening in the next 10-15 minutes, and that would certainly inject a little bit more drama, as if we've not had enough already. But we're currently watching James Baldwin in that McLaren trying to catch down on Vyacheslav Abeladze in the 41, the sister Simware.pro by Vides machine, as they come across the line to start lap number 11 down into turn 1 here. And again, last time round, 143.767, 7/10, 6/10 of a second faster was Marco Bischoff than our race leader. So our race leader, I think, doing a 144.3, I think starting to struggle maybe a little bit on those tyres or in these wet conditions.
Yeah, quite possibly, but it's also very possible that Marco Bischoff is just that little bit quicker at the moment. Without Novikov really changing the pace, Bischoff could just be stepping it up ever so slightly now that he has been released from the clutches of Malinowski just up in front of him. So yeah, it's very difficult to say really at this stage, but certainly been in control as this Bentley so far in this race. Big lead, still has a very big lead, and obviously we'll try and stay out there for a little bit longer, because while we're going to see some early pit stops back in the pack for that from those who are stuck in behind other cars, that leading car has had clean air the whole time, and as long as that continues, they'll stay out until they have to come in.
Yeah, they certainly will. So we're under 40 minutes left to go, and that's a big power slide from the Bentley. Tries to hold on to it, does hold on to it. David Pertile almost certainly going to lose that position to Wojciech Lukacek there in the 25 McLaren. No, there's a drag race down into the next corner then, because the next corner is going to be the chicane. And there we go then. So Lukacek actually does hold on to that position somehow after the almightiest of tail end washouts there. That car was almost doing you in a Tokyo drift round the corner, but he held on to it, kept it going, and fair play, kept that 10th position.
Yeah, it probably wasn't the fastest way to go for that corner really, but he just about managed to keep it on the road, so fair play to him for that. But certainly going to get under a lot of pressure now from this McLaren, maybe down the inside into turn 1, but still not able to. You can see, even with a mistake at a circuit like this, it's still very difficult to get through. That's how hard it is around this particular circuit to actually go through, because we saw the bit of a wide moment through turn 9, but it still wasn't enough. And into turn 1, the run was there, but nowhere near close enough for this Zandvoort car. Again, into turn 3 there, you saw him looking every which way, but still not able to get through. It is hard to understate how difficult it is around here, but this battle is allowing further 2 drivers to catch on from behind, and this could become a 4-way battle for 10th very soon.
Well, let's see what on earth happens though. But Unislav Lenin for Ginnepack's Engineering trying to catch down on the 75 Ferrari there of George Boopy just up in front of him, and you can see how fast the closing speed on these McLarens is, right up to the back there of the car in front. Now, James Baldwin having that 5-second penalty, that is on top of, I believe, I think it's a 130-second penalty unit that he'll have to serve post-race, because he is the sole driver in that car tonight. So his teammates still having the technical issues that he was beforehand. His pedals, Im Murphy's pedals broke again, so Baldwin's doing the race by himself, and again that means he's got more penalties to do, but that's on top of that 5 seconds that he's got.
The 5 seconds we've just seen there was for causing a collision with the 34. We did note that happened at turn 3, maybe lap 2 I think it was, but didn't see what exactly happened in the background of our shots. And yeah, you're right, 130 seconds of penalty for James Baldwin. That is more than a lap around here, a lap and 30 seconds ish. So that is a really, really painful one for him. And if the race were to end right now, he'd be basically last at the end of all. It's second to last maybe. So it's a really big penalty. But after all, it's a 2-driver series, and so doing it with 1 driver is going to set you back a bit, clearly.
So here we go then. James Baldwin still trying to catch up to Vyacheslav Abeladze, but again, look at Nick Hubin as well. He's now starting to drop, and have a look at Marco Bischoff actually, because that gap now 3.3 seconds. We saw that about 5 laps ago where it was what was it? It was about 5.5 seconds. Now it's 3.3, and yet again, still 6-7 tenths of a second. Marco Bischoff is taken out of that gap of the race leader there. So that is definitely coming down pronto. And wow, awesome stuff. I am loving this race, and yeah, I'm just thinking to the next one, Ewan, and we're going to have a top 10 reverse grid. Can you imagine the chaos that's going to come out of that one?
Well, yeah, it is going to be very chaotic indeed to see that. But yeah, a long way to go until we get there, and we're going to see those battles in and around the top 10 places for those positions, which is going to be very interesting in the second half of this race. But yeah, that's certainly going to make things chaotic. This group's going to be fighting very hard later on, though, of course, because this is the last team to get that reverse grid place and would start on pole if you finish in 10th of this race. So very important indeed to make these moves at this stage in the race. That is going to allow things to get a little bit more chaotic, though, as you say, with the wet weather and so on. It's just going to make that things a little bit more difficult as the pit window now does open for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's I certainly can't see, well, it's not going to improve. The conditions are not going to improve in any way before the end of this race. It's going to remain an absolutely sodden, soaking track here at Zandvoort. Cracking battle though that we've got going on in front of us. You've got a 5-car battle. You've got Sven Hedich. You've got the 101 of Brian Lewis. You've then got Felix Repair in the 71 Aston Martin, Ivan Shermantinsky in the 81 Bentley, and then Robbie Stapleford the back of that group with Samir Ibrahimi as well. And looks like Stapleford goes a little bit wide. Samir Ibrahimi thinks about going on the inside, and there is Robbie Stapleford, excuse me, trying to take that position from Shermantinsky. So Shermantinsky actually going wide, and of course I should have known that because of course Robbie Stapleford is the one that's in the BMW. It's been a long day, Ewan. I think my eyes are starting to fail me here.
They do look fairly similar actually from some of these angles, especially that they're both in the black there. So the new BMW playing a couple of tricks on us, but let's not forget this is the BMW G2 Esports car that had a really quite good run throughout Brands Hatch. 5th place in the championship after 2 top 10s. So to see them languishing outside the top 20 here is a bit of a surprise.
It really is. We're just hearing that James Baldwin into the pit, so Baldwin the first car to blink and take the mandatory pit stop. And remember, just because the Williams Esports car went into the pit earlier on, that won't count because that was outside of the pit window. You can pit as many times you like outside the pit window, but that doesn't count as your mandatory pit stop. So again, we've got 8 minutes left to go in the pit window here, 33 minutes left to go in the race. Ewan, with the time start to go back out again now between Novikov and Marco Bischoff, we're waiting to see new drivers jumping into these cars here. How do you think that's going to affect the race?
Well, it certainly is going to change the race, there's no question about that, because it's no longer going to be Novikov versus Bischoff, is it? It's going to be that these teams pitting themselves against each other. It's all very well having the one good driver who can stick with the leading team, but if you've not got the drivers to support you in that, then you aren't going to get anywhere in a series like this. So it's going to be very important that when these teams start to come toe to toe, and of course that they're going to again in race 2, but given the standard at the front of the field at the moment, I can't see the pace difference changing too much really in reality. But it just really remains to wait and see. Really, how are they going to perform on the day? How are the co-drivers going to perform on the day? And that is often often quite a big factor as well.
So here we go then. Just over half an hour to go in the first race of tonight's Coach Dave Super Sprint here at Zandvoort, round number 2 of the season, and it's your number 42 of SimGrid Pro by Vides, who are in the lead and in charge of this race, you've got to say, over Marco Bischoff in the number 977 Porsche for Kramer Racing Esports, sharing that car with Jonas van Drooyen. And again, he's another driver that we know intimately well here at the SimGrid, a very, very fast racing driver, and definitely has the ability and the knowledge of what it's like to deal with that high pressure situation. Third place then is Nick Hubin in the 221 machine. That's the RHG Esports car, the esports machine being shared with Luke Whitehead as well. And RHG, as well as many of the other teams that are taking part tonight here, Ewan, we spoke briefly earlier on about how seriously these teams are taking it, but it's amazing to see these big conglomerates, these big powerhouses of esports teams, and the amount of work that they put into these championships and races.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've been speaking about it for quite a few number of years now, about the level at the front of the field, and it is continuing to get better, as you say, with the different teams that kind of developing things, moving things along now. So yeah, it's fantastic to see, and who knows where it's going to end up in the future as well, in the SimGrid as well, of course, where we've seen fantastic racing for a number of years now, and it's continually getting better at this stage, really, with this series and others around it as well. New series as well coming up, of course, as we mentioned in the past. So yeah, it's an exciting time to be involved with sim racing, and of course the SimGrid as well.
It's not a bad time, is it? It's picking up quite nicely, I'd say. Oh, more penalties coming in thick and fast. So as you can see there, instant between cars 9 and 31. That was on lap 2. That is a racing incident, and the cars 129 49 on lap 3. That is a racing incident as well. So, well, that's nothing of any value was lost there. So racing incidents, and I'm presuming that would have included our little incident that we saw earlier on. So yeah, that's a turn up for the books. I was expecting a little bit different, but it is what it is. Meanwhile, Robbie Stapleford, look at how hard he is hustling that car onto the back of Shermatinsky. I mean, he is pushing so hard right now.
He is. He almost got straight into the back of that Bentley there, coming through at the very, very long turn 6, and maybe looking at the inside of 9 here, but not able to do it there either. do need to make one decisive move really to make things work here, and I think his best bet now is just to come into the pit lane and try and jump them in the pit stop somehow, because it's quite a risky one to go for it on the circuit. Might as well just wait a little bit longer and then get them in the pit stop, because by the looks of things this BMW is a bit quicker than the 81 car just up in front. Looking at the pace at the moment, I mean, just through one corner we saw the pace difference writ large for us, so better off to do this in the pit stops really. But he's running out of time really. He's only got 3 minutes to go, and so he's got this time and next time to come into the pit lane and try something here, so surely got to at least do something different, and that's exactly what they're going to do.
I always get so nervous, Ewan, when I see those cars coming pelting into pit lane and thinking at least one of them is going to stack it into the wall here. Now, what has happened with our race leader? Because that gap went up to 3.8 and now it's back down to 3.0. So Novikov getting caught up handsomely by Marco Bischoff here in that fight for the lead of the race. Meanwhile, here is Marius Forzitlo. We saw Marius in that incident about 5 laps ago there, trying to catch on to the back of the 31 TF Racing of Manish Gerardis. So this is not going to be an easy battle in any sense of the word there. But the two McLarens duking it out, you've got to say, and that is what has allowed Robbie Stapleford to head off into the sunset. That was, of course, until Robbie away into the pits here. But 27 minutes left to go, 2 minutes left to go in the pit window as well, and still a lot of drivers. You've got to say that surely this has got to be everyone into the pits this time round.
Yeah, I mean, well, to be fair, the leader could have carried on, but decided not to. Although Bischoff has, so he's going to really bring this one out as much as possible over the next couple of laps. So about 1 minute 43 is we're in the lap times at the moment, so he does have time to do this. But some didn't want to risk it, and oh dear, he might be regretting his choice now. You saw that off at turn 2, running a little bit wide for Bischoff. I was about to say this is going to be one of the most important in-laps possibly of this season, if he wants to try and get this race lead, or at least get a little bit closer for his teammate. But that's not going to happen anymore, surely, with that runoff on the grass.
Well, that was interesting. Right, an amendment to an earlier penalty then, instant between cars 129 and 49. It's now a 5-second time penalty for the 129 for causing a collision. Right, what happened with Marco Bischoff? Is it going to be enough to, undo all of the hard work? I think he's going to just get away with that, but it all depends on how many more laps he has in the bank here, because if he has several, then that might work out very, very well for him. The other issue as well is that our race leader, Novikov, now down into to third position, doesn't really have anyone anywhere near him, so he's lucked out in terms of the track position when he's come out of pit lane there. But it's all eyes on Marco Bischoff. 25 minutes left to go. He's going to have to be in at the end of this corner here. It's going to have to be in now. Yep, here we go.
Yeah, there we go. Just trying to get into the pit lane without stacking it into that tyre barrier there, which is a good thing. And so into the pit lane now with a few seconds to spare. And that should be that, really. We noticed a few drivers are going to be outside the pit window here. Those top two have come in. But I reckon the rest of them might just not change drivers, or whatever they're doing.
Baldwin's driving by himself, so I wonder if he'll obviously just stay out there. But I'm not sure about Richard Lindhorst in the 111, because he was sharing the car. Well, Florian Becker did qualify.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So what rule haven't they gone by? Because you can see that the kind of boxes that we're referring to, they're the orange box. If it's gone green, then they have abided by the rules, and if it's still orange, then they haven't. So, I wonder what rule they haven't abided by is the question there, really, as the Porsche comes down the pit lane right now. It looks like the 42 is going to retake the lead here on the outside line. Just about, though, that gap's a lot smaller than it was.
Yeah, it absolutely is, isn't it? My goodness me, that's down to about, half a second between the two of them. And that gap was 3 seconds when Bischoff came into pit, so that is a supreme pit stop. You can see just how much he was pushing into there. So what a finish to this race we've got here, because remember, Bischoff was faster in that car as well. So handed over the car to Jonas van Druyten, and it's now Bykoff behind the wheel of the 42. So Mikhail Bykoff now has to fend off Jonas van Druyten, and we'll see if Jonas still has the answer to his teammate. Meanwhile, it looks like Igor Ogorodnikov in third position. So we have got a SimGrid.pro by Vides double on the podium. That is a story in itself, Ewan.
That is very impressive indeed, and very helpful, especially for the 41 car. They came into this day only third in the championship, with Williams Esports a long way down, and the 44 car losing a few points to them as well. The 44 all the way down in 20th right now. This team could well be moving into a championship lead by the end of the day, but they've got a lot of fighting to do until then. The 221 car right behind. This is of course the Mercedes that they jumped to get into this third place during that pit stop cycle.
And I'm watching down the order on the timing screens here. Tinko van der Velde, our championship leader in that number 80, 33rd position. There's going to have to be some sort of an inquiry into that one as to find out why they've absolutely struggled. Meanwhile, we've got a yellow flag for Arashi Racing's Jean-Claude Grubler in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, who brings out a yellow flag on turn number 5. But this is currently watching Igor Ogorodnikov as we watch the clock tick down in this first race of 2 here tonight for the Coach Dave Super Sprint here on the SimGrid, side by side, and that is a huge move. That is an unbelievable move around the outside by Luke Whitehead to try and take that position there. It didn't work out, but my God, Ewan, does he get points for bravery right there?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what the new corner is designed to do, really, to encourage that kind of overtaking. But it doesn't mean that it's not possible there on the old configuration as well. A little bit flatter of a corner does make it quite a long way around the outside, in all honesty. But still gave it a very good go there in that Mercedes, and unfortunately didn't quite come off. It is losing them quite a lot of time. You can see the gap to the two leaders is over 11 seconds at this stage, heading towards 12, and the guys behind, like James Baldwin, are catching up quite rapidly here to get involved himself. But very entertaining battling for the moment. It does look though as if this 41 car struggling ever so slightly to keep their rivals behind. They jumped them in the pit stops, of course, but now the holding on has got to happen, and there's a long way to go still.
I'm just watching the time between Bykov and Jonas van Druyten, first and second place. That gap now going up is now 1.9 seconds. Meanwhile, we've got another penalty coming through. This time, the incident between cars 9 and 995. That is the 995. It's the Renfelten Esports machine of Florian Durkop. It's a 15-second time penalty for car 486. For Team Ballast Esports. So yeah, so the 486 getting a big penalty there, and that'll be applied after the race is done. But watching back here with this little battle for Igor Ogorodnikov and Luke Whitehead, and now it's just brilliant to watch as Whitehead gets demoted down into to 5th place. So James Baldwin obviously on an absolute charge right now.
He certainly is. He seems to be very, very quick in the second half of this race, by the looks of things. Pounding the back of Ogorodnikov right now. We saw him get through on Whitehead at turn 1 with absolute ease. Might be able to get through here with ease as well into turn 8, but not able to do it into there. You see the traction, the cornering, just everything better for this McLaren at the moment in the way that it's driving. Going through 9 now, it's going to be difficult to make a move into turns 10 or 11. But and this is a funky camera angle, isn't it? But it looks like somebody's flip-flop, to be honest. But there we are. It's very difficult to get through, as we've said before. Even though Baldwin is absolutely gliding around this circuit, he's still coming unstuck when it comes to actually overtaking, which we've spoken about all day as being very, very tricky.
Yeah, certainly is. 20 minutes left to go in the race here, and Bykov now up in the lead by 2.3 seconds, so that looking very, very comfortable indeed. But here comes then James Baldwin side by side on Igor Ogorodnikov into turn one, forces Igor Ogorodnikov to go wide and helps himself to that position like a breakfast buffet, just there for the taking, and James Baldwin walks away with third position. His next target away down the road is going to be Eunice van Drooten, but quite honestly, in 18.5 minutes, I cannot see that one being taken. Now, Igor Ogorodnikov in years gone by would have been very, very aggressive in terms of trying to hold that position, but I don't know how familiar you are with Igor's driving style, but it's very much changed in the past year or so. Very cool, calm, and collected customer he is now.
Yeah, I have seen him driving a fair amount over the last couple of years. I haven't been able to see too much of that progression, but I have been able to see the back end of it, I suppose. Yeah, he's certainly a force to be reckoned with these days, and very quick indeed. But for whatever reason, Baldwin's just absolutely flying in this second half of the race. I'm not entirely sure what the reason for that is, but he really is motoring along, and there's absolutely no way these two can really hold him back at this stage. Just throwing a theory out there about Baldwin. The fact that he isn't changing a driver means that he won't be complying with the rules anyway. So if he just doesn't change tyres either, or refuel, then maybe that doesn't really increase his penalty, because he's still not abiding by the same rules, and so it's still the same amount of penalty. So I just wonder if actually keeping the same tyres on, everybody else has been forced to change them because of the rules, but if keeping the tyres on might actually mean that they're a little bit better in the second half of the race. I'm not entirely sure if that's true or completely false, but it's just a theory about the pace that McLaren has got right now.
Well, we'll certainly have Michael Hamlet in our ears very quickly if that is the case. But he's actually given us some fantastic updates on James Baldwin anyway, saying, James has already got 2 licence points as well now. So that's another thing that we have to bring into the conversation, is this licence point system that is there to deter any serious accidents or incidents. So the next penalty that he gets, it will give them an additional penalty at the next round. If they get 3 penalty points, it's a 15-second time penalty in that car at the next race. So that will be quite a big effect for them on that next race there. They're not going to want that.
Absolutely. Just want to stay out of trouble, and considering I'm surprised he's gotten into so many battles today, to be honest, since seeing that, and since they're going to be getting such a big penalty anyway, that why would you risk getting into other ones here? We've seen overtaking difficult round here. It's easy to get it wrong and accidentally get into an incident, as we saw with Bischoff a little bit earlier in that battle for second. So I'm surprised in some of the places he's put that McLaren, but each their own. Of course, he's just out here at the moment, just trying to have a good time, really, because it's going to be a big penalty for them at the end of the day anyway. They might as well just enjoy themselves while they're here. That's the situation they find themselves in. But yeah, they do have to be careful not to pick up penalties for those future rounds, as do all of these guys, really. They don't want to be getting the licence points, they don't want to be getting the penalties for next races and so on and so on. So everybody's got to be a little bit careful, of course.
Nice and gentle is what you're trying to say there, Ewan. We've got a yellow flag then. The 486 brings out a yellow flag, and that I think is turn 7 there. So that is the Team Ballas Esports C outfit of Gabor Sarozzi and Mattia Vacci that get going again and get their way in. So they are outside of the top 28 just now, so you won't see them on the timing tower. However, they are actually running down in 29th position. So they are very, very nearly there. 14.5 minutes left to go though in this first race of 2 here at Zandvoort tonight here on SimGrid. It's the Coach Dave Super Sprint Series, round number 2. And what cracker we've had so far. The 42 of Vides come back to that in just a second here. We see a replay here, so let's have a look what is going on. This is going to be down into turn 7, yep, 486, onto the grass. I tell you what, that's some mighty awareness there from the Williams esports machine. I still cannot believe our championship leaders, and the thing is that obviously, you know, every team has a bad day, but our championship leaders after the first round down at the bottom.
Yeah, it's a bit surprising. It certainly is a bit surprising to see that right now. Where are they actually officially? 29th right now, which is a very long way down. Not what you'd expect to see the championship lead, especially after 2 podiums in the 2 races 2 weeks ago at Brands Hatch. It's a big surprise to see this car so far down. Just getting what they can from this race, really. They're going to benefit, of course, from some of the penalties for those up in front, and they're benefiting from that there with the Aston Martin running wide. But yeah, it's a day to forget for them, or at least so far it is. We'll see how they can turn it around in the second race, but it's going to be equally as difficult because they're going to be starting in the pack, of course, as is anyone really outside of the top 10. These two are fighting over the last 2 places inside that top 10. But
hang on, that was second place.
Leader.
That was the leader. The leader is off then, so Bikeoff has absolutely binned it at the halfway through the track then. That's into the gravel on that banked right-hander, and the 42 is looking like out of the race. I wonder if that's a hardware failure. That could be a hardware failure there, Ewan, and that is absolutely incredible development for the race.
Certainly is. What has happened to the leader? That is the real question. That's difficult to work out at the moment, but a big shock, certainly. Only 1 second lead, so it wasn't a done deal by any stretch of the imagination, but they were certainly on their way to a possible race victory in the final 5th of this race or so. And wow, big drama. Let's see if we can decide for anything here. We're already slow. The push is already through. And what's going to happen here to get onto the gravel? Yeah, it certainly looks like a hard way, doesn't it?
There was no acceleration on that car. It was just dropping off on speeds, and that car is still banked at the side of the road. So, I mean, an unbelievable turn of events. But if you wanted proof that sim racing is as incredibly close to real life racing as you could possibly want, well, there's your proof. You get your real life mechanical failures, and that's what we've just had here. We've had a mechanical failure from the looks of it. Obviously we need to have that confirmed here, but wow, that was let's have a look here. So he's going down.
Yeah, the slowing down isn't the problem here. This is the problem. The steering is the problem. That suggests to me it's a hardware. The slowing down is fine. I think he's started to realise something's going wrong here, and he just manually kind of backs off. There's nothing wrong with the pedals, in my opinion. It is the steering that's gone wrong there, because you saw him just nearly come out of that corner. He just about made his way around turn 6, and then just as he was leaving the corner, it turned deadly straight, and it didn't look like there was anything he could do about it. Sat there for about a minute, but I think they've officially retired now, so that is really, really gut-wrenching for them, but they've got to pick themselves up again, all over again in the next 10 minutes, and go again in the second race if indeed they have the hardware to do so.
One of 2 things has happened. Either Windows is shutting down, or you've got that horrible, and everybody knows it, that USB disconnect sound, that horrific noise that you never want to hear in your headphones when you're doing a race, because it always leads to some tears and tantrums before bedtime. But what we have to focus on now is the fact that means that Jonas van Druyten in the lead of the race in the 977, and they are absolutely going to take that win with both hands for Kramer Racing Esports. They will be delighted with that, with 9.5 minutes left to go.
Yeah, absolutely, they will be very, very happy indeed. Didn't manage a single top 5 during the first round at Brands Hatch. They were 18th and 7th in the 2 races, showing a great deal of progress throughout the second race, but nowhere near race victories. That's no secret. But straight out the front now, and as long as they can hold on for these final 9 minutes, and they will be taking the victory by a very big margin, of course, because James Baldwin with his penalty is going to drop down from second. Luke Whitehead looks like he'll be second. and he's nearly 15 seconds back at this stage. So it really is cruise control for him at this stage.
And why not? You know, you've done everything that you need to do. Absolutely just coast at home. You've got less than 10 minutes left to do. Brilliant day at the office so far. And my eyes now turn to that reverse grid, because if James Baldwin has got a 130-second penalty, that is unfortunately, I believe, going to put him outside the top 30. So that effectively nukes the race for James Baldwin there. Very, very difficult to see how they undo that one. But yeah, you're right, and that does bring us back to the fact that at least one of the two of the SimWare.Pro by VDES machines gets on that podium. Because remember, we were, 20 minutes ago, you and me thought we were going to have two cars on the podium from them.
Yes, all of a sudden fallen apart a little bit for them. Sort of looks like they're going to get one car on the podium, but Ogorodnikov certainly doesn't have the pace of Whitehead at this stage, and yeah, they don't even have the other car in the running anymore, so things have fallen apart a little bit, and that just shows why you can't speak too soon. You can't count your chickens, as it were, and you do have to keep going till the end, because things can go wrong very, very easily indeed. So yeah, it's a shame for them, but it's the way sim racing in particular goes. As you mentioned, the equivalent of a mechanical failure there for the race leader. Big drama with less than 15 minutes to go. It's going to be difficult for them to come back from that, starting from the back of the field, and as I mentioned, if they even have the ability to do it.
Yeah, it's of course these hardware problems might require some sort of heavy duty fix for them, but lap 29 that we're on just now with 7 minutes left to go in this first race of two. Now we've been watching this brilliant little battle here. Janis Sherdakis for TF Racing, Souvlaki squad hunting down Maximilian Walmuth in that number 71. Renvelton Esports Orange, who took over the car from Felix Repair. It had been a decent start from Felix, but they've been sent backwards at a rate of knots here, and it's all about whether the TF Racing machine can get its way past in that McLaren right now. Looks very comfortable being right up to the back end of that machine there. We've got another penalty coming through here. Incident between cars 72 and 7 on lap 10. It's a 5-second penalty to the 72, so that is to David McKell, who is just in the background there as we see side by side down the chicane. That's going to end in tears. A little bit of contact there from Janis Sherdakis, under braking into Maximilian Walmuth there. That was always going to happen, because these it's not so much intended hitting or bumping of the cars, but the car, when you put the brakes on, will very often go in a different way to the way that you predict it's going to, especially when you put on the anchors in a very heavy manner. And that's all that happened there between Janis Sherdakis and Maximilian Walmuth, and the two of them thankfully get to walk away with this one. Meanwhile, lap 30, Jonas van Druyten there in the lead of the race. Kramer Racing Esports handed the victory, handed it on a silver platter from that number 42, and they have absolutely taken it and said thank you very much. James Baldwin in second place with the number 28 machine. They are doing a cracking job for Veloci of trying to hunt them down, but as we said, James Baldwin, a solo driver tonight, is going to finish outside the top 30, as they will be given a 130-second mandatory time penalty for not having a second driver, and therefore kind of gaining an advantage by not having to stop here. That means that Luke Whitehead and Igor Ogorodnikov are going to end up in P2 and P3. We'll come back to that in a minute, but the final 5 minutes of this race, and Janis Sherdakis is in a rock and a hard place right now, isn't he? Because he's got Renvelton Esports Orange in front of him and Renvelton Esports Red behind him. That is a car that I do not envy right now.
Yeah, I mean, this will be hard enough anyway, but the fact they're teammates just makes it even worse for Sherdakis at this stage, because he really does have his hand for... Oh, that's a dive! Oh, maybe a bit too much of a dive, was it? The 71 car goes off at the penultimate turn. Georgakis knew that the time was coming there because of the Ferrari just behind. He knew that he'd have to get through quite quickly if he wanted to do it at all, and so he went for a dive at the penultimate corner. Was it on, and was he at fault for that is another question, but there certainly was an incident, and they're not going to be happy at that or about that at Renvelt, and they're not going to let Georgakis go very easily with their Ferrari now either. So interesting one. We'll maybe have to see it again to find out quite what happened, but an incident between the two, and Georgakis might land himself in hot water for that.
Yeah, he certainly might, and I ain't even getting involved in that one. I ain't even calling that one. That was that's definitely left for the race stewards to work out what happened there. But Charlie Crossland here taking over from Robbie Stapleford for the BMW G2 eSports machine ahead of Daniil Sherepinin, and just behind Oleg Kamenev in the 81 as well. So again, going through the order here, 3 minutes 10 left to go. The race has kind of calmed itself down a little bit, you've got to say, compared to what we've just seen in the past hour. A little bit of a nice chill, a little bit of a lull in the action, but I get the feeling that the final minute is going to be a little bit frantic. But as we said, Jonas van Druyten 9.5 seconds ahead of James Baldwin.
Yeah, it's quite a big margin, although it has been coming down in the second half of this race especially. Still quite a big margin and a comfortable one for the race leader. There he is, Jonas van Druyten just hitting his marks at this stage and cruising to a victory, really. They kind of got to psych themselves up a little bit more for the second race, of course, where they'll be starting from 10th position. That is going to be a different prospect. I know they had a bit of battling to do in the early part of this race, but the only overtake that they did manage to do, or Marco Bischoff managed to do on the circuit, of course, did have contact, and he'll have to do another 9 overtakes if he wants to actually get to the front of the race again in the second race. So that is going to be looming large in their minds.
I absolutely will, and that is what's going to be on their minds very, very shortly, because of course we have a short respite between races 1 and 2 where we head off into the next one. But the talk of the town, I mean, really has to be on how much this championship is going to be turned on its head. We've got our championship leaders away down out of the top 30. Williams Esports might have managed to get themselves up a little bit. They have actually. P26 goes Tinko van der Velde. Then it was obviously the number 44 team, the Jardier community team, and they are another one who are struggling mostly because they're not even actually out on track. Yeah, they are, sorry, excuse me, 17th position, so they're really going to struggle as well in terms of points tonight. The 41, they're going to be in the best position actually, because they're going to get third place, and they are down in third in the championship, so all eyes on them.
Yeah, should be championship leaders at the end of this one, as we see great side-by-side battling here with the 44 that you just mentioned, that Bentley, trying to gain as many points as possible. That was very impressive around the outside of the final corner, but it's just not quite enough to get through on the 888 there, and so they're going to have to stick behind in 17th position right now, which is really a lot lower than they would like to be. Barrier trying to get down the inside again, and there's a bit of a hit. The Mercedes goes off, and we've seen that a few too many times here today. The 44 at least up into 16th, but once again they may be in a little bit of trouble for that.
A bit of a hit, Ian. That's the understatement of the year, I think. I think you were being a little bit polite there, because that was a mugging, is what that was into turn 1. Yeah, it's the thing is as well is that with these wet conditions, you know yourself, it's so easy to miss your braking point. At which point it's just like good night Vienna. You've got no control over what's going to happen next. You pray that you don't hit anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Jonas van Druyten here, David, just coming through the final corner, and he's taking the checkered flag comfortably to take the win.
I think he's very happy about that one. I don't think in his wildest dreams he would have been taking that race win if he'd asked him half an hour ago. James Baldwin, though, will cross the line, but again, that 130-second penalty for being a solo driver. That hands second place to Luke Whitehead and third place to Jägerogger on the Golf. for that SimGrid Pro by Vides number 41 machine. Zahir Essa finishes in 4th, Jadslav Hondig in 5th position, is then going to be Castorino in 6th, Sasha Glatter in 7th, Alexander Herbigno in 8th, Richard Lindhorst will finish in 9th, then it's Felix Arndt and Mikhail Statsenko rounding out your top 10. Wow. Fireworks and flares going off in the stands. A very enjoyable, though, first race, Ewan.
It was a good first race. Obviously, the conditions playing a factor in that one. But yeah, lots of cars down the order compared to where we'd expect to be. A few new names up towards the front in the context of this championship anyway, new names up towards the front of the field on this occasion. And so that makes it very interesting, of course. The reverse grid for race 2 is always exciting. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But yeah, Zandvoort renowned for being difficult to overtake, but it wasn't a boring race. Watching these guys try and figure out a way to get through on one another is very entertaining indeed.
I think it's going to be, Felix Arndt in the Prime E Racing number 77 machine that is going to start in pole position for the race number 2 tonight. But there we go, that is race 1 done and dusted, and a huge congratulations to the Kramer Racing Esports machine of Eunice van Druyten and Marco Bischoff there. So yeah, awesome stuff. Right, let's have a look at how that is all going on, because I'm hearing in my ears that it's going to be Alexandre Herbigno for the 154 GTWR R8G Academy, and I know you heard that call as well there, Ian. I'm trying to work that one out, because obviously my little poor 2 IQ brain is I just had it explained. Yeah, Herbigno finished P10 because he had a time penalty. Of course, that doesn't get reflected on our live timing, so that would explain it then. All right, there we go. Ewan, don't you love just having someone as prepared and as professional as me beside you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but no, it is difficult to work out on occasion with all these fancies. There were a lot of things to go through, by the way. I did see that the stewards were rattling through as many of these incidents as possible, but there are only so many things you can look at once, and there are so many things going on during that 1 hour race, and 1 hour's not that long really in the context of things. So especially compared to some of the longer endurance races that we've had in the past, where stewarding is a little bit more, you can get through it throughout a race a little bit easier than in these frantic sprint races. But yeah, it does set the grid nicely for our second race, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. I'm to be honest, I'm quite sure that even these drivers won't have really known where they were starting, especially if they finished in the top 10. They will have question marks over this as well, so we don't stand a chance.
Yeah, we certainly don't. Another driver who didn't stand a chance was the number 42 of Mikhail Baikov. And Ewan, we're getting some intel thanks to Nugget in YouTube chat. Baikov had he's got the new CSL DD wheel. He had a quick release disconnect, and the wheel actually came off. That is, wow. That is horrific. I mean, it's obviously it's bad enough. Imagine that happening in a real life car, but in a sim racing car, how frantic are you trying to put that back together?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not a good situation to find yourself in. I'm unsure as to. I've never heard the terminology "quick release disconnect" though, because that suggests to me almost that the wheel just falls off his desk, which would make the car go any which way rather than just turn the steering off completely. So I'm not entirely familiar with the terminology myself.
So what happens is the quick release technology, Ewan, is it's for you to be able to swap out wheels a lot easier rather than having to unscrew it. You basically unscrew. I believe, again, I don't have one, so I'm just going on what I think. It's like a latch system that does it, and then you take the latch off, and then you can just pull the wheel away from the actual base, and then slot in a new one. But the thing is as soon as you pull it out, it's like pulling out a USB. You know, the steering just doesn't work. until you reconnect that wheel back on, because it's got all the wiring for the buttons and everything like that as well. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm sitting here with my little T300 RS, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, thanks for never ever giving me that worry of, like, you know, I've got to spend 2 days and get the old the screwdrivers out if I ever want to change the steering wheel on that thing. But yeah, a horrible incident, and some big consequences for that team.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I was picturing the whole shebang coming down on his lap on the desk there. That's what
the entire direct drive wheelbase just falling off the table.
That's where I went wrong there. So that's where I was a bit confused. But now that's cleared up nicely. So yes, there we are. But yeah, very helpful in terms of making your life a bit easier, but not particularly helpful during the middle of a race anyway, which is really unfortunate. But as we mentioned, these things can and do go wrong with the mechanics of the wheel and so on, and that's why we don't really, and probably shouldn't, have random mechanical failures in sim racing, unless you do something stupid to the engine, like blow it up or something. That's normally simulated, but as many things are, of course, in ACC, like the brakes and whatever. But we don't need random mechanical failures just out of nowhere, because we have our very own, and we don't need any more.
You should watch me behind the wheel of the car. Then you definitely don't need random mechanical failures, because you don't need any, because I'm that slow. It's quite funny. But I remember the last time I took part in the SimGrid race, actually. I think Michael Hamlet was also on the grids, and I'm pretty sure it was at Donington, and I swear to God, I was 4.5 seconds a lap off of the pace, and there is nothing that has ever come close to making me feel as absolutely inadequate as and the thing is that it's all the same names that were on here. There is nothing that makes you feel more inept and more inadequate as a sim racer. So yeah, back to AI racing and back to making myself feel a little bit better with that. But let's head and chat a little bit about the 1000 series then coming up here, Ewan, because again, a huge season ahead for the SimGrids. We've launching this brand new championship, 5 rounds, 1,000 kilometres, which works out at 6 hours, and 3 drivers per team. I mean, that is just going to be a mega event.
Certainly is. More endurance racing, which you can never get enough of, and yeah, there's some great circuits there as well. All European circuits, iconic ones, of course, throughout the continent. So yeah, looking forward to that. 1,000 kilometre races, and 5 of them, and plenty of chances for lots of different drivers from the same team to get involved with as well.
And talking about getting involved, this is the great thing about these events at the SimGrid. This isn't like it's some sort of private party only open to elite racing drivers. If you have Assetto Corsa Competizione, you can head over and take part in the qualifying event that is going on until Monday. Head over to thesimgrid.com, get yourself signed up, become part of the community, and you can get yourself entered into that qualifying event. You can see up top left there, the Coach Dave 1000. It is going to be an amazing event. Big cash prizes that'll be getting given away as part of the competition as well over the season. And as we said, 3 different splits to suit all of the abilities. You've got your pro class, you've got your silver class, and then you've got your amateur class as well. So we will be taking a vested interest in those 6-hour races, and we are very much looking forward to that. Head over, as I said, to thesimgrid.com and get yourself signed up for the CDA 1000 events. The first one, as we said, isn't going to be too far away. The first race, of course, is going to be in April. On April the 2nd, that is going to be the Barcelona 1000. It starts around about lunchtime. It starts usually between sort of 12 and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You've got Barcelona, Imola, Nürburgring, Silverstone and Monza to finish off the season. But back to the Coach Dave Super Sprint Series, where we are tonight. We are here at Zandvoort. We have got one more race to go here tonight. Then we move on for the final 3 rounds of the season. Again, we go back to Barcelona as a a nice little warm-up for the CDA 1000. Then it's on to Bathurst, if you can imagine that, and then Imola at the end of the season on the 28th of April. Ewan, just a couple of minutes away from going to the grid for our next race. What do we think we can expect then from the second race? As we said, we've got on the pole position for this next race, Alexandre Herbigno. This is going to be a doozy.
It's going to be another good race, certainly, to see how things get on. Really interested to see if more teams can stay consistent. As I said at the start of the day, really only about 3 teams were able to have 2 top 10 results throughout the opening round at Brands Hatch. Well, I suppose BMW G2 managed to 10th or 5th, but they might be hoping for a little bit better than that. But yeah, I just really wanted to see how the teams who were really up towards the front throughout that first race, how they're going to do in this second one. Are they going to be in the same position? I do suspect, however, a little bit more chaos off the start. Reverse grids tend to really produce that for some reason, even though the gap between first and 10th in terms of talent is very small. First to 11th is, I should say. For whatever reason, the different kind of mix of drivers and teams just often produce some kind of incident off the start. So hopefully we keep that to a minimum.
I think it's because it's the final race of the evening. Folk are just determined to get a much better start. They think they understand what they did wrong in the first race and want to try and make that right. But let's have a quick look then over your field then. It is the 154. It's going to be Chris Hartveld behind the wheel of that car to start off with Mikhail Statsenko in the 449 alongside. So the 2 Mercedes on row 1. It's the 2 McLarens on row 2. You've got Felix Arndt and Chris Sever in 3rd and 4th position. David Pertil and George Boothby in 5th and 6th. Raymond Mooney and Vyacheslav Abeladze in 7th and 8th position. Nick Hubin and Jonas van Druyten in 9th and 10th. Luke Gobi starts on P11 with Ivor Shermantinsky in 12th position. Robbie Stapleford in 13th. Valentin Barrier in 14th. Yanis Shardakis is in 15th in the McLaren. Maximilian Walmuth in 16th with the Aston Martin. It's David McKell in 17th with the Ferrari. Marius Tvorzidlo with Oleg Zolobov. Dan King in P20. Florian Durkop in P21. And then it is Bonsignori in 22nd position there, with 23rd being Darragh McCormack on the recovery drive for that number 80 Williams Esports machine. It's going to be 24th and 25th for Jonathan Riley and Eamon Murphy. Florian Becker's P26, Danila Shihirapinen in 27th, Sheldon Muscat in 28th, with Manos Gerardis in 29th, Gabor Sarosi in 30th, Mikhail Novkowski in 31st, Alexander Novikov in 32nd, and Paul Batty in 33rd. So there we go then. That is, that was an amazing race 1. But obviously we now have to turn our attention to race 2. And it's all about, for me, where that 28 machine is going to end up. Because I'm looking for them and I don't see them.
Yeah, the 28 car at the moment, we'll have a little bit of a look around. But yeah, we'll see really where they can get up to. Because obviously dropped down a lot after the first race due to the penalty. So yeah, it's all going to be a bit of a lottery, I suppose, as well. But interesting to see what happens at the start here, really, with all of these guys in a different place. How are the likes of Van Druten going to get through the field? Of course, these guys on your screen right now all finished off the race just a few minutes ago in race 1, so they won't have done a race start yet. That is as per the rules, and so how's that going to change things? Is this group of drivers going to struggle to get through cleanly? Because the first couple of corners of the first race was very clean. It wasn't with these drivers at all. So there wasn't a single driver of these who was on that grid. So it may well change going through the first few corners of this race. Oh dear.
Not the best start on the formation lap for some of the cars there, but thankfully, the cars have ghosted at this point, so we get ready to go live for our second race of the evening, our second 1 hour race of the evening. And if James Baldwin has decided to sit this race out, which I think he has, because I still cannot see any sign of that 28 car anywhere, might be for the best, because he's going to start at the back of the grid. He's going to be in a lot of traffic, and with just one penalty point away from, or one licence point away, Ewan, from getting a penalty for the next race, it might be easier just cutting losses tonight.
Yeah, quite possibly. It is very possible that they're just going to sit things out and wait. It's all down to personal preference, really, because as you say, the likelihood of them actually getting a real good result out of this one is very low. They will have obviously got a big penalty from the first race, so they'll be way down the field starting this second race. So that's going to make things tricky, first of all, but also, as you say, the licence points, and they're going to get a penalty again at the end of this race due to not changing drivers. So it may well be beneficial for them to just park things up and wait for another opportunity in a couple of weeks' time. Hopefully we do see them back, because that is a team that has the potential to really fly high in this championship, but at the moment they've not been struggling to find their feet in this season. Hopefully Eamon Murphy can get those pedals sorted, and we'll be seeing a fully fledged team heading into the next race.
Yep, that's exactly what we are looking for then. Alexandre Herbigno to lead the car round then for the final race this evening. 60 minutes, another 60 minutes, and the conditions are deteriorating rapidly. They are forecast to get much, much worse in the next half an hour, so it'll be very interesting to see what these drivers are going to be able to do with these deteriorating conditions here at Zandvoort. But the car's going to be lining themselves up 2 by 2. That means that Alexandre Herbigno is going to be alongside Mikhail Statsenko in that 449 machine. So it's going to be the 154 of GTWR RHG Academy Black alongside Yaz Heat Pirelli. We get ready to go green here as the cars make their way down, and this is going to be an awesome race then. You can see Statsenko pulling in front a little bit there, and he's going to have to move back there. He gets going, and somehow Statsenko has already taken the lead. And that is an unusual turn of events here. I'm sure race control will be looking at that, and the cars pile their way into turn 1 here at Zandvoort. Thankfully, yet again, they all make it through turn 1. Whether they can make it into turn 2 is a completely different question. But somehow, Mikhail Statsenko into the lead of this race. That, for me, Ewan, very unusual start to the race. And that is a yellow flag, and that is all hell kicking off. Williams Esports caught up in it. Jan Bierman for Renville and Esports X Unicorns of Love caught up in it as well. The 888 caught up in it as well. And that is 5 cars that really did not want to be losing out at this early in the race.
Yeah, absolutely, but very strange circumstances at the front of the field. I've got to say there, I'll be very surprised if Statsenko doesn't get some kind of penalty for that, because that was very weird, going down into turn 1 just to accelerate ahead of the leader before the line there, which is just unheard of, and definitely surely outside the rules, going down towards turn 1 there. So yeah, we'll see what happens about that. But further down, the miserable day for Williams Esports continues, really. As I keep repeating, you need to be starting at the front of these fields, really, to keep out of trouble like that. But Williams have been down the back all day, and they've been involved in trouble twice in 2 races. This is going to be a big hit for them in the championship, and hopefully they're going to learn their lesson heading into Barcelona, that they do need to qualify a bit better, as we see Charlie Crossland off the road coming out of turn 11.
Wow, so Charlie Crossland into the barrier there, and that is not something Charlie wants to have happen. Again, from watching the way that Charlie drives, and this is something I mentioned on the previous race as well, Ewan, is that Charlie can be a very temperamental driver. If he has something happen to him that he feels is not his fault, I've seen it time and time again where he kind of snaps a little bit, and he gets very angry, and other cars usually tend to suffer for that. So we'll see if any of that happens tonight. But Yeah, that is a little bit awkward, but let's have a look at the start here then, into turn 1, and just having a look on the inside here. 2 cars into the one corner, trying to go in, and yeah, that's never going to work. You've got 2 cars forced off to the grass there, trying to hold it in. That is a terrible, terrible rejoin from the car there. Yeah, and it causes all of that chaos. That is going to be a really, really interesting one for race control to decide, because I've seen that happen so often where it looks like, and again I've got to say it looks like, because that's all we're paid to do is be commentators. We don't get to look at all the angles, so we just share our opinions here. It looks like that car tried to keep its foot in, which is, it's understandable, but you take that risk because when you're on the grass, you don't get the same way to try and get back on the track here. Right, let's have a look here what's happened with Charlie Crossland then. And, not again. That's another one of the Renfelton cars. That might even be the same one. So that is the Renfelton Esports Orange machine, who has had a little nibble at the back of Charlie Crossland there.
It's possibly the same car, but yeah, I mean, the first instance especially, I wouldn't pin too much blame really on anybody there. First of all, they were going 3 wide through turn 1 and into turn 2. Somebody was always going to end up off the road there, really, because of just how narrow it is around here. It was unfortunate that those cars end up on the grass, but first of all, it's grass where you're not going to be able to stop there very easily anyway, and it's wet, so it's a literal ice rink on the outside of that corner there. The way that corner kind of double backs on itself back towards turn 2 there really didn't help them. If it was a left-handed turn, then they would have got back on and nobody would have noticed. But the fact that it was a right-hander means that they've clattered into somebody else, and now everybody's pointing the finger at them that they rejoined badly. So I don't think they were at fault really for that one there. They were just caught up on the inside line, on the grass already, and didn't really have the power to stop from that kind of speed in such a short amount of time.
I'm sorry, what? Where did this ninja appear from? Where did James Baldwin just suddenly magically appear? And he's in 15th position. I'm sorry,
already?
What? How?
Yeah. I don't know how that's happened.
No
where
way.
From.
This is impossible, Ewan. He had to have started at the back of the grid. He had to have started somewhere around about 30th, and you're telling me he's already in 15th position? No way. That is ludicrous. If that is the case, I mean, amazing stuff. But James Baldwin up into 15th position. So let's have a look then. He's still, and the thing is as well, is that the fields are not all that far bunched or spread out. So James Baldwin is 10 seconds off the lead of this race.
Yeah, he's very close to the front of this race at this stage, and he's looking like going to go for another move here on the 44 car, which had a fantastic Brands hatch, of course, down the inside there. It looks like the move was made fairly easily by Baldwin in the end there to turn number 1. But yeah, I mean, we checked the top 29 at least was showing on my screen. I actually thought we lost a few going forward into race 2 there, but we do have 34 cars starting once again for race 2 here at Zandvoort, and he was not in the top 29 of those, so I'm going to suggest that he was 30th or worse off in this field starting off. But even so, that makes it a remarkable achievement really, to be up in 14th already. Of course, avoiding the incidents will have helped, and that's not quite overtaking in the same way. However, it's still impressive to pick your way through the field like he's done here early on.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've still got a yellow flag shown as the number 34 is in the pit lanes. That is the TF Racing Souvlaki squad of Janis Sherdakis and Konstantinos Kontogiannis. So they are in pit lane. Unfortunately, that's just a bug in the game where occasionally if a car goes into pit lane, they do get shown to be causing a yellow flag. So we don't actually have anybody else off at the moment. If there is, we'll keep you up to date on that one. Just looking at the Porsche just in front of Tinko van der Velde, that's Richard Lindhorst, and that was a big moment. That car looks very unsure of itself under braking here, and perhaps no surprise because that weather, the rain is getting heavier, and it looks to be doing so for the next at least the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, you see on the top right hand side that it is going to get a bit heavier. about the remainder of this race. We've got someone off at the final corner here trying to rejoin. Hopefully there it is, just on the outside line. One of the Mercedes coming unstruck for some reason. Looks like it might well have been.
Oh no, sorry, Murtazov. Yeah, the 919. Igor Murtazov of SMP Racing Esports.
One of the SMP racing cars, off the road there at the final corner. Which, without having seen it, I would suggest that maybe that car was put there by another, because you don't often find yourself unstuck in that particular gravel trap, or at least not in that place anyway, without interference from somebody else. So I have a feeling there may be a bit more of a story to tell there.
You say that, Ian, but you've obviously never watched me race, have you? So if you're looking for any corner to have an incident, don't worry, I will find a way of putting that car off. But joking aside, Tinko van der Velde is just flying through now in that 25th position car. Let's have a look at what happened. This was onto the back of the Porsche here, and let's just have a look here. So what we'll see here, here we go. This is the replay here then, and into turn one. Oh, that's a send and a half. Was that Baldwin that did that there? No, that's much further back there.
Oh, well, that was a bit rude on the exit. Oh dear, and this has caused a big problem here. All three of them have gone around. Wow. So the dive from the McLaren was ambitious, but quite well executed, in all honesty. It was very late, but it was very good as well at the same time. Unfortunately, Van der Velde didn't exactly give much space to that McLaren on the exit of turn one there, so and caused three cars to go off spinning. So he certainly looks to be in the wrong there. But that's one of the latest dives I've ever seen that hasn't resulted in a big accident, as we see side by side battling up inside the top five now. Castorino was trying to get through into fourth place, hold on to fourth place, I should say, there from Honzik, but wasn't quite able to do so.
You know, I was watching that accident unfold there, and the internet has completely ruined me, because all I can think of is I want somebody to clip that and put the wee bowling sound effect over it. Nice shot. I've seen it done so many times, and it just gets me every single time. Simple taste, what can I say? But 50 minutes left to go in this race. Amedeo Castorino for Clash Sim Racing here in 5th position, stuck in between a rock and a hard place, trying to cut down the beloved community icon that is Jaroslav Honzik, aka Jardier, ahead of Zahir Esa as well, and you can see Felix Arndt just up in front in that 77. Still no word from race control about that race start, and I've got to be honest, in fact we've had a first penalty come in, which is after, and that's instant between cars 81 and 49, and it's a time penalty to 81 for causing a collision. Right, let's have a look then what happened here. Oh my goodness me, that's a scary moment, isn't it, coming out of the final corner. Right, what is going to happen here? Because I get the feeling this is going to be the dive of all dives coming in to turn number one then. Again, very, very late there. Oh, and that's a little clip onto the McLaren there. Yeah, well, that was a bit scary, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Arndt trying to get through on Herbignew after having made a mistake there in this battle for second. Then we saw Castorino just get into the back of Arndt there, but didn't want to take advantage of that, because that would have almost certainly resulted in a penalty. So he just backed off ever so slightly, and the backing off allowed Honzik to get involved, and he certainly did, getting into fourth place. Obviously, it looks like he's slightly paying for that now, to be honest, because under a bit of pressure for this fourth place, Castorino wants that fourth place back again. But yeah, it was good opportunistic driving, as we see a number of racing incidents deemed on the first lap there. This is the thing that tends to happen on lap one, really. It's quite rare that huge incidents like this can be put down to one driver. Normally it is just chalked down as too many cars, not enough space, and racing incident, and it looks like a similar kind of thing has gone on there.
Absolutely fair enough on that one. It's a very, very difficult one to judge. Car 81 though getting a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision. Now, given all those incidents have just come up there, Ewan, I would imagine that that might put Statsenko in the clear for that start.
Wow, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. But
Because
then again,
if they're being they get investigated in order, and we've got a yellow flag actually here. Is that the 88 that's brought out the yellow flag very briefly? The 383 gets a 5-second penalty for causing a collision on lap 1, but I don't get it. I don't understand how the car can have been alongside and have its nose in front. I thought the game kind of forced the car behind to be behind and would have automatically itself issued a penalty.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the ruling on that may have already been given because lap 1 was 13 minutes ago now, and so it may have been already given. But also, more likely, or well, maybe not more likely, but another suggestion I have is that is different in regards to a steward's investigation. That is different to something happening on the track. That's almost more of a sporting regulating kind of thing, if you see what I mean. It's more of a actual rule rather than kind of racing incidents where you've got to judge for yourself who's at fault and if anybody is at fault and how badly they did and so on. That's more of a black and white rule. Oh my goodness, Van Druten's off.
Well, that was the world's longest accident happening there from Jonas van Druiten. You saw the oversteer, he tried to connect it, didn't happen, and ended up very, very lucky that he didn't catch the barrier there. So Jonas van Druiten has a huge moment. Meanwhile, Jaroslav Honzig now onto the back of Felix Arndt by just 0.4 of a second. He needs to watch out because he's got Casarino and Zahir Essa behind him as well. But that Ferrari looking very well planted. The Yazhi Richard Mille outfit. 45 minutes left to go in this second race of the evening. And look at this now, onto the back. What is Jartier going to do? He's going to try and go around the outside. That's never going to work. The McLaren's going to be compromised. But the McLaren has such a good corner entry that it can really just throw that car about here, and it does the job very, very well, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And Honzig's just struggling to get through at the moment as we see this battle also for what is for 12th place, excuse me. Right now, this kind of thing tends to happen. We saw it during the first race, we're seeing it again here, and it's no surprise. You get these cars at the fronts of trains, they're difficult to get through, and this kind of thing just happens. This is where the pit stop cycle obviously is very helpful, but it's so hard to overtake around it, and we've seen when they attempt to make moves, incidents can happen so easily as well. It all plays into the hands of the defender. And as you can see, it just gets worse and worse for them. What's this, about 8 cars maybe, all in this battle over 3rd place?
It's brilliant stuff. And very much enjoying it as we've got 3/4 of an hour left to go here. It's still Mikhail Statsenko for Yazhi Pirelli in the lead of this race. He'll be handing over that car to Torsolini Masek Malinowski, who will be looking to make amends after that first race of the evening. And then it's Alexandre Herbigno in second place there in the 154. GTWR RAG Academy Black Machine sharing the car with Chris Hartfeld. Then in third position, I will just tell you in a second, excuse me. Third position is, of course, Felix Arndt in the 77 Prime E Racing Machine, sharing that car with Sven Hetic. And then in fourth position, Jaroslav Honzig as another fastest lap for James Baldwin down in that 10th position there. It's 5th position for the 129 Bentley Clash Sim Racing, 6th place for the 777 of Sim Racing Master Class in McLaren. The 91 McLaren of Racework.com are in 7th position, and then in 8th position is the 221 Mercedes of RAG Esports, quickly followed in 9th position by the 41 Mercedes of SimWare.pro by VDES. And then round out top 10, James Baldwin in the 28 McLaren for Veloci Esports. He is tearing his way through the field right now. Right, Ewan, bets on James Baldwin. Is he going to take the race win tonight?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult for him to take the race win, but he's certainly kind of tipping all that I'm saying about difficulty of overtaking upside down, single-handedly almost. Because he's been making great progress so far. It's really puzzled me actually, because during the first half of the first race, he really didn't look that good, to be honest. In qualifying as well, looks a little bit below where you'd maybe expect him to be, but he got a complete resurgence in the second half of that first race, and he's been flying so far in the first half of this one. So I'm not really sure what he's found, but he's very, very quick out there at the moment, and he's tearing his way through the field. I still can't see him taking a race victory, because I think the leaders are a bit too far away, really. But I think he's going to have too much opposition for that race win. But yeah, he's certainly going to be up in and around the top 10, as he already is, of course.
Yeah, certainly is. This is Luke Whitehead down in 8th position. He's trying to hold on to that place from Igor Ogorodnikov behind him, and you can see leering, looking in the background. James Baldwin is an absolute menace in that McLaren, looking so fast, and that is a car that you do not want to have in your rear view mirrors. And it's almost like watching the film The Predator. He just appears out of nowhere, and then suddenly you're laying in the middle of the track here at Zandvoort disemboweled. So that is the effect that James Baldwin has in that mean Veloce machine, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. We've got another yellow flag for SMP Racing Esports and Igor Mordozov at exactly the same corner. That was the final corner where they came a cropper earlier on, and that is exactly where they have had the issues. They've got going again, but it's not been the best of days for that 919 down in P29. So Ewan, I mean, look, we're 20 minutes into the second race of the evening, but it feels very, very different, this one, doesn't it?
Just feel a little bit different. I mean, first of all, there are more cars in contention at the front of the field by the looks of things in this one. You know, you could outline the top 10 as being very much in contention for this. I know that Statsenko is starting to run away a little bit, but if a few of these guys get through on, then that's all of a sudden going to change. Whereas we saw very few up there in the opening moments of the first race. The difficulties of the final corner not becoming any less severe either coming out of here, and it took them a long time to get going again in that Mercedes as well, because it is a blind corner and you can't just go pulling into the middle of the road. So yeah, it's still difficult for everybody, but yeah, it certainly seems that more cars are in contention at this stage, and that can only be a good thing. So
as we said, James Baldwin 10.6 seconds off of the race leader right now, and given that he is trying to make his way past one of the cars in front of him, Igor Ogorodnikov, and the lap pace that he has got, I'm going to reserve judgment for this. I think that he could very easily still be one to watch towards the end of this race. If he is on the podium position in the last 10 minutes of this race, all bets are off. I'm just saying that right now, because the pace that he has got has been absolutely exemplary. One man though who is going to be doing more than others, I would imagine, try and hold on to that position is Jaroslav Honzik, who is up in 3rd position there, just behind Alexandre Herbigno, but ahead of Felix Arndt right now as well. This is Amedeo Castellano for Clash Sim Racing, as we cut back to Zahir SF4 Sim Racing Masterclass in the 777 McLaren just now. Again, as we said, 40 minutes left to go in this race. We're going to be looking at pit stops very, very shortly. Now, you would put yourself in this position. If this is you about to jump into the car for the final part of the race here, what's your strategy going to be? Are you going to push it as hard as you possibly can, or do you just want to secure the position that you've already got?
I think especially inside the top 10 here, you've got to push on at this stage. This championship is going to come down to very few points, you would imagine. You've got to pick up as many as possible and try and get the best race result that you can possible, really. So yeah, you've got to push on here, especially inside the top 10. And I'm sure that all of these guys are going to be doing so. Of course, it's not going to be these drivers, it's going to be their teammates who haven't finished a race here at Zandvoort yet today. These guys who are on your screen right now finished the first race. So it's certainly going to be a different challenge for those who started their respective races in the first half of this event. So it's going to be different for everybody. But yeah, you've got to push on here. Try and pick up as many points as you possibly can. It's too early to be sitting around and sitting on what you've got as wide for Sasha Gladter that was. dropped from 7th all the way down to 10th in one fell swoop there.
That is an absolutely stunning development then. Sasha Glatter, I can imagine, just a bit frustrated at running wide. They're just a bit frustrated at dropping out of the 7th place where they were right now. But Luke Whitehead and Yiger Ogorodnikov are going to absolutely be delighted with that one. And look at this, Yiger Ogorodnikov's in a very curious position because he's right on the back of Luke Whitehead, but he's also got James Baldwin right in his exhaust trail at the moment. And the thing is that this is such a track, and I feel like I always say this, but it is so true. It's such a track based on momentum that the car that's actually in benefit is the car right at the back of James Baldwin, because, you know, oh my goodness me, that was what? How? In what universe, in what planet was that ever going to work? That was right up the inside. Now, maybe Igor missed his braking point, but that did, I mean, from that camera view, Ewan, that did look very, very clumsy indeed.
It was certainly ambitious. Obviously, it's going to look like a hero if it comes off. But unfortunately, it didn't in the end. He did give the position back to Whitehead, I think, or at least offered little resistance to Whitehead coming back at him at turn 2 there. So that's a bit resolved in that respect, I suppose. But Baldwin and Glatter were both able to get through as a result of that as well. So they're certainly not going to be pleased with how that one played out. It was very, very late on the break. So it just depends really. Certainly on first glance, it looked like a late one. But you know, if there was a gap there and it constantly kept getting closed in his face, then maybe the opinion will change a bit. But it certainly looked at first glance like it was a bit ambitious, to say the least.
Yep, certainly was. I'm seeing now, hang on, is that going to actually happen? I've seen what I presumed was a bit of a jokey meme in the YouTube chat, but I think there could be a possibility that James Baldwin is away to try and hand over the car to Eamon Murphy. Now, Eamon Murphy has got a broken brake pedal, and he apparently, and again, this could just be a joke, but he's going to look into trying the clutch pedal as the brake on that. And, well, it's rather him than me. Can you imagine going from, like, this beautiful brake pedal that's set up with a load cell, and it's got the right amount of tension, and it's going to feel like you're going back to one of the Fisher Price toys.
It's going to feel weird if that is indeed true. But to be fair, when I used to do a little bit of driving, I always used to use the clutch pedal just normally because it just felt nicer, to be honest. So to some it may not be an alien concept, but certainly if you've been using the right pedal for the entire time, using the wrong one all of a sudden will be a little bit worse. Also, if you kind of go on autopilot a bit and forget and just rest your foot on the wrong one and then realise when there's nothing happening into turn 1, for example, that might not be a particularly great thing for anybody involved. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And yeah, I do hope to see Murphy out there, because Baldwin's put in a lot of great effort, to be fair to him, in the first half of this race. It'll be a shame to see it all go to waste, really, with the way this order is going to correct itself. By the way, this pit stop is a little bit different in race 2, isn't it? Because they don't have to take on any fuel, and they don't. They're not allowed to, and they've only got one tyre set for the race as well. So this pit stop will be a little bit different.
Yeah, so it's just a driver change that is going to be happening over the next 10 minutes, so we'll keep an eye on that. But that's a brilliant point, well put there, Ewan, and thank you very much for reminding not just me, but for the viewers at home of that one as well. So as you said, no fuel or tyres allowed. It's literally just straight in for a driver. So we've got Sasha Glatter and David Michel into pit lane as well already. We've got a lot of takers early on. Now, I'm seeing that, interestingly, that over the next half an hour conditions are going to ease slightly here, so I wonder how much they're going to ease. I don't think it's going to be by much. I think it's going to be, it's going to go from monsoon to very heavy rain, almost unnoticeable.
Yeah, it's not going to be too noticeable. They might be noticeable in the lap times. And you will have to keep an eye on the tyre pressures, the tyre temperatures, of course. But there's not a lot you can do at this stage with no tyre changes allowed. So, yeah, it's really not going to change too much in this one. It's just been a very, very wet afternoon, and it's going to be for the entirety of this one. I'm afraid to say, for some, of course. But
now, who was that off? Who was that off in the background? Luke Whitehead.
And Ogorodnikov has got through very easily there. Just looked like he overran the corner there. Didn't look like there was contact particularly.
Oh no, David Michel's got a stop go 30, so's Bykov. Is that speeding in pit lane? That's going to be an automatically assigned penalty. So that is David Michel and Bykov in 21st and 23rd. That'll change as well. But wow, that is, I mean, that's a schoolboy error right there.
Yeah, and the frustrating thing for them is that likely that was on the entry to pit lane, and it won't have been their fault. So that's the frustrating thing for them. But they've got to go and take the penalty anyway. Well, it'll be Ibrahimi actually who'll be taking that penalty for the 72 team, and it won't be Bykov, will it? It'll be Novikov presumably taking that penalty for them as well. But yes, that's very frustrating for them. As we see more pit stops on the right hand side, you can see how it's done because you're coming from quite high speed there on the right hand side. And getting yourself into quite a narrow pit lane, in all honesty.
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. Have a look at Mikhail Stasenko here, our race leader for Yasheet Pirelli then in the 4:49 ahead of Alexander Herbigno there in second place, 5 seconds behind here. And I mean, Mikhail's basically done everything that he needs to do right now. He's pushing very, very hard with the car, but not taking any risks or chances that he doesn't need to do right now. With 6 minutes left to go in the pit window, he's looking very, very strong.
Yeah, it's certainly a few are going to be very happy with the situation they're in right now. I think it's fair to say. And yes, Stasenko, even though there's obviously a lot of controversy over. Well, at least between us about the starting procedure and whatever happened there, but it's shown that Stasenko is not there by luck or through that start entirely. He has got the pace here because 5 seconds is indeed a fairly comfortable margin to have at the halfway stage.
Yeah, it really is. Halfway through our second race of the evening, an update from race control then. An incident between cars 383, 521 and 34 on lap 2. That is TF Racing Souvlaki. The 521 is Wheelspin Esport, and the 383 is Dalkin Community. That is a racing incident. The incident between cars 72 and 44, that's Renfelt and Esports Red, and Chartier Community. No further action on that incident either. We are in the middle of pit stops then, where there's going to be a driver change, but no fuel and no tyres are allowed to be taken. Mikhail Statsenko for the 449 Yasheet Pirelli team still out front and in charge just now. He will be handing over that car to Maciej Malinowski very, very shortly indeed, as will the 154 Mercedes of Alexandre Herbigno, passing over that car to Chris Hartfeld. I'll be very interested to see how those drivers are able to do. Jaroslav Honzig though, third place at the moment for that 75 Yasheet Richard Mille. So 1 and 3 at the moment, a double podium for the two Yasheet teams. Ewan, as a team owner, I would imagine Yasheet will be very, very happy with that result if it was to stay that way at the end of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. As we said earlier, we said this earlier on in this event, didn't we? About what was it? Was it the Simware Pro team or was it somebody else? Anyway, we were saying about another team a little bit earlier on in the first race, and then the lead changed because of things out of their control. So they can never get ahead of themselves here, Yasheet, and think that they've got this one over with because they haven't even made their pit stops yet. Let's not forget. They've got to wait for that to all cycle through before they get excited, and then obviously the rest of the race has got to come as well. So there's a long way to go here. But things are certainly looking pretty decent for them at the moment. Well, not looking bad at the very least for them at the front of the field. So yeah, solid result so far. And of course the 75 team trying to pick up as many points as they can for that championship. Pretty sure they're going to be overhauled by the 41 today, but even so, they do want those points.
Yeah, hang on, I'm sorry for jumping in, buddy, but what on earth? James Baldwin up to 5th place already. How the hell has that happened? Is that because drivers in front of him are pitting? Well, either way, it doesn't matter, does it? He is just getting closer and closer and closer. And as I worried about, that gap's come down massively. That gap to the leader is now 9 seconds. That was 11 seconds to James Baldwin. This is getting really, really scary stuff now, and he is looking all over the place on Amadeo Castorino for Clash Sim Racing here. Wow, this is very exciting if you're that number 28 Veloci esports machine.
Yeah, he's looking very good right now. I think partly his venture inside the top 5 here has been helped by people pitting. But also there's been a lot of overtaking in there as well. We'll already see where he is at the end of this pit stop cycle, of course. He may well be in at the end of this lap to make that mandatory driver change, quite possibly. So we'll see about that. But yeah, for now he's doing a very good job in 5th position. But all that traffic here, by the way, for Castorino, 2 Bentleys, which are really getting in his way. Blue flags waving at the moment, but don't have to jump out the way like they do in other categories, fortunately. And yeah, they will indeed pull into the pit lane. At least Castorino will. Baldwin is willing to go one more lap and push this one very close indeed.
I don't know about you, Ewan, but I get heart failure every time I see that angle in the pit lane, because it always looks like they're just coming tearing in and actually going to hit. And there we go, James Baldwin then up into 2nd place then, because Stasenko's pitted, Hermanio's pitted, Castorino's pitted. So James Baldwin now is up into 2nd place and is now somehow just 2.99 seconds behind your race leader, because of course now Jaroslav Honzig takes the lead of the race for Yazzie Richard Mail with everyone else into pit lane, and they are going to be cutting it so fine for this final pit stop of the evening. They've got 1 minute left to go, and I think they've maybe got about 3 to 4 seconds to spare on this one, and there is James Baldwin. Well, I knew it was going to be a different race, Ewan, but I didn't imagine it was going to be as chaotic and as dramatic as this one.
It was certainly going to be a different kettle of fish, as you would say, because of the reverse grid almost entirely. But yeah, it has been very entertaining so far. James Baldwin has been very, very good so far, and so is Honzig here at the moment as well, leading this race. But he'll be in at the end of this lap. I just wonder if Baldwin's not making a driver change at all, then why would he come in the pit lane at all? That's the only thought I've got on that at the moment. But because he is cutting this very fine, as you said, Honzig is going to be able to get in here with seconds to spare. Baldwin's going to be even closer, but he is coming in the pit lane as well, and goodness me, he's going to be cutting this one fine. 1 second, there it is. Oh goodness, did he get in there? I think he might have just crossed the beam in time, but my word, he cut that one to the very 10th.
That is not what you want to have, is it? Like, if you finally got if you've got your driver that is actually there after the worries of not being able to do it, you don't want to have that driver coming in and yeah, that is. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just like, why would you leave that stress to yourself? We will wait and see, because the game will tell us very, very shortly. Meanwhile, Marco Bischoff up into 15th position, then coming hunting down Robbie Stapleford in that BMW G2 Esports in the 682 machine just ahead of him. You can see out there on track. 25 minutes left to go in this final race of the evening here for the Coach Dave Super Sprint on the SimGrid. It's David Christie and Ewan O'Leary taking you through all of the action, and I'm hearing from race control that looks like that is counted. That driver got James Baldwin got in before that timer hit 0. Ewan, that is, I mean, I'd be buying a lottery ticket this weekend if I was him.
It was very, very close indeed, and he did just about make it. We're finding out now. So yeah, that was a bit of a risk, a bit of a needless one as well, to be fair, but it was a risk, as, oh dear, Marco Bischoff having a bit of trouble there. He drops down to 17th after trying to get through to 14th, so that mistake from Van Druten really costing the team that won the first race here this evening. But Eamon Murphy in the car for the first time, and we'll see what he can do compared to his teammate Baldwin in the second half of this race. But yeah, a tad bit unnecessary risk from Baldwin, but he calculated that one quite clearly, and he knew that he could make it just in time. We weren't exactly sure how lenient or strict the pit limiter line and the countdown timer was going to be with the game or whatever, but it turns out just not strict enough for Baldwin to get in time. That was quite remarkable, but very well calculated.
Well, it looks like that Eamon Murphy is 8 seconds behind our race leader. So not only does the 28 Veloci Esports machine have a chance at a podium, a very good chance, being just 1.7 seconds behind George Boothby, but Chris Hartfeld in that second place could be under fire very, very quickly. And if Eamon Murphy can't get past Chris Hartfeld, then this is way closer than I thought the 28 would be, and I said keep an eye on them, but that is a yellow flag that is out, and that's the number 8 AM Yellow Racing Team, and that's Patrick Nage that has had a bit of an issue. He's got going again there now, I believe, or as he ended up returning back to pit lane. Yeah, I think that number 8 is in pit lane, so that is a rather awkward end to the evening for that number 8 machine. Please tell me that wasn't Sheldon Muscat that was behind the wheel of that car. I just couldn't handle it if that was some even more bad luck for poor Sheldon there. My heart is broken.
It's the second half of the race, and he did the first half of the first one, so through the rules it kind of has to be. You would expect.
That's gutting. Yeah, never mind. Right, George Boothby for Yaz Heat, Richard Mail in third position. Now, I was a little bit confused there because obviously I was trying to remember which car was where, but Eamon Murphy now trying to hunt that car down, and I don't think he's going to be able to do it, to be honest, because Murphy's last lap there, well, no, actually 2:33.1, so it was about 0.5 of a second faster than George Boothby up in front. But both of these drivers in recent weeks suffering hardware failures. George Boothby had a hardware failure at the second race of the first event, which meant that team did not finish their second race. And obviously Eamon Murphy having to be quite creative. He's having to MacGyver his way through this race using the clutch as a brake. And just going back to something that you said about when you'd done that, using the clutch instead of the brake there, as we see Marco Bischoff. What was that? That was literally just got absolutely round the side of Ivan Sherbotinsky. What didn't help and what we didn't quite see was the tail end of that Bentley going absolutely Tokyo drift round the corner, and that's what allowed Marco Bischoff to get that incredible speed there. But just thinking back to what you said there, Ewan, about using the clutch for a brake pedal, and in some situations I can see exactly what you mean, because on some of the the non-load cell the pedals, if you use the brake for a while, it can become very loose. The travel can become a little bit soft and easy, and then you go to the clutch and you're like, well, this has actually got a little bit more resistance here. And one of the things I ended up doing on my very first set of pedals, I think it was on the Thrustmaster T150s, it was a squash ball. In fact, no, it was my Driving Force GT. It was a squash ball tucked in behind the brake pedal, and that gave it a little bit more force when you pressed it. And we're a creative bunch, aren't we, sim racers?
Yes, the only problem is when it falls out. That's the problem.
Well, see, it didn't. It stayed.
Right,
yeah, it was a bit of a mod that had been shared on all these forums, and it worked really, really well. I was really surprised. And yeah, a squash ball, the most high tech of solutions, eh?
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm imagining one of the bigger ones that are a bit more squidgy than the very small, quite hard squash ball. But anyway, let's not get into squash ball technicality too deep.
I think it was a 2 dot to be precise.
Yeah, let's not go there. But yeah, I mean, it's all about what works. It's all about what pedals you have as well, of course. It won't work for all, and all of these things won't apply to all different wheels and pedals and whatever. So it's all a bit of a minefield, really. You just got to find what works for you. It looks like whatever solution Eamon Murphy's come up with does look like it's working for now, although he doesn't look quite as quick as Baldwin was, and I think we can forgive him for that, really. Murphy hasn't done any driving in this event just yet. Baldwin has had plenty of time to get used to the conditions, and so he was flying by the end of his stint. Well, by the start of his stint in this race, anyway, and indeed in the first race. So he was very used to the conditions. But Murphy is taking his very first steps into these conditions, which are very tricky. We can't forget. So we can forgive him for being a couple of temps away from where he might be otherwise.
Yeah, with 17 minutes left to go in the race, it's currently Maciej Malinowski in the lead then for Jacek Pirelli, ahead of Chris Hartfeld in the 154 GTWR RAG Academy Black Machine. Third place at the moment is George Boothby in the number 75 Yazzie Richard Mill, making it a 1 and 3 for the Yazzie outfit. Then in fourth position, Eamon Murphy in that number 28 machine. Currently doing a grand job of trying to catch down George Boothby slowly but surely. David Pertile in the 129 Clash Sim Racing Bentley is in fifth position. Sven Hetich in the 77 Prime E Racing McLaren in sixth position. It's then Raymond Mooney in the 777 Sim Racing Masterclass McLaren in seventh place. It's then Vyacheslav Abeladze in the 41 Mercedes in eighth position. Chris Surveyor in the 91 McLaren in 9th, and then Nick Hubin in the 221 Mercedes in 10th position. We've got a yellow flag that is very quickly being resolved here, and Eamon Murphy, that gap's coming down a lot quicker, and I'm wondering if those couple of laps that he needed to get used to things now settled in, and he's now starting to close that gap now to Boothby to 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. It's closed a little bit. Well, I wasn't expecting that to actually happen throughout this race. I thought he would spend most of his 25 minutes just keeping pace at the very least with those around him, but he seems to be pushing on just ever so slightly at the moment. Of course, it's a strange situation for him to find himself in, because he does a lot of driving for Yassi as well, but he's obviously not on Yassi this series, so obviously there's some kind of deal thing going on there around, but I'm very used to seeing Murphy drive alongside Jaroslav Honzik very often in the more endurance series. We've seen it in endurance cups and so on in the past on the SimGrid. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a weird one in bearing down on Yassi.
Yeah, and of course a lot of these drivers and teams, they'll swap, they'll change over the off-season and ahead of the brand new racing season, and that's what we see year in, year out. Meanwhile, Raymond Mooney and Sven Hetich then into turn one, and again round the outside tries to go Raymond Mooney. That's never going to work because Sven Hetich has the inside line. That's bringing in Vyacheslav Abeladze in that 41 Simware.pro by Vides machine, who he shares with the big bad Igor Rodnikov. Fastest man the race though is Maciej Malinowski. Tortellini himself up front and in charge in that 449 machine, 5.1 seconds ahead, and that was a 1:43.487. Closely followed, I've got to say, by Eamon Murphy, who did a 1:43.850 using a clutch and a brake. I'm sorry, what?
Oh yeah, he's clearly gotten used to it quite quickly, and is really bearing down on this Ferrari now. By the looks of things for third place, it's just a case of how hard is he going to fight this one, really, in terms of trying to make up the position. The Veloce team obviously lost quite a lot of points really throughout the opening moments of this season, but the 75 team still very much in the hunt. So we're expecting the 41, using our very rough mental maths, that the 41 after race 1 would have the championship lead today, but to the 75 outscoring them right now, need as many points as possible, as though two teams look like they're remaining the most consistent out of any throughout the opening moments of this season, which is obviously nearly will be at halfway through the Barcelona round in a couple of weeks' time. So it's going to be on their minds. As I said, just depends how hard Murphy pushes them, really. If they start to get into a really dangerous battle, then they might let him go, but they're going to try their best to hold on to the podium if they can.
Yeah, they certainly are, and they're not going to have too much longer to wait, are they, Ewan? Because 13 minutes left to go, and that clock is very, very quickly ticking down. But Eamon Murphy trying to catch on to the back of George Boothby. The gap now under 1 second for the first time since we started this race. Chris Hartfeld, though, that gap going up between him and the race leader, 6.4 seconds now, and this is the all-important time to go. 0.8 of a second between Murphy and Boothby. You get the feeling, Ewan, that it's all very well catching up to the back of Boothby, but he is a very tough cookie to crack, and it's going to be quite difficult for Murphy to get past him.
It is, and we keep repeating ourselves about how difficult it is to overtake at this circuit full stop. So catching is one thing and passing is another. It's never been more true, really, in a situation like this. And it's kind of being shown for us in groups like this that you can see for P5 on your screen right now. One car at the front of the train, the rest of them sat there not really able to do very much about it, and that's become quite a recurring story, really, throughout this race. Very, very tricky to get through. See, a bit of a factor at circuits like Brands Hatch and Barcelona as well. Bathurst a little bit easier to overtake, but it's no less difficult. And of course at the end Imola's going to be quite hard to overtake as well, so they've not made things easy for the drivers.
Just another day, isn't it, here at the SimGrids for Coach Dave's Super Sprint. We don't want to make our drivers' lives easy. It makes it much more entertaining for our viewers out there, and I think certainly got their money's worth tonight. I had a question in on Just Jesse F1 on the YouTube. Is there a PS4 class or division of this specific race of Coach Dave's Super Sprint? No, there is not. But if you head over to the SimGrid anyway, get yourself signed up. One of the new things that they are branching out to is Assetto Corsa Competizione on the consoles. So you can sign up and find leagues and find championships that are happening on the PlayStation. So yes, there are races on there, but not this specific one. I hope that answers your question, Jesse. So that is thesimgrid.com. Get yourself part of the community. If you know if any of your friends are running leagues, get them to put it on there, and they can get some more drivers into the mix as well. Joshua Allen Racing has fired up the bants already. Is wanting to know where the Ballast Esports Boltley is on the go. Well, I will have a look for you, and I will get back to you on that one. But moving over into the consoles, obviously the Assetto Corsa Competizione has had quite a big following on the brand new PlayStation 5. It compares very, very well, and it's great, Ewan, isn't it, that the SimGrid gets just the equal treatment, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of simulation games on the console, it's been quite hit and miss, very hit and miss actually, for the last number of years. But ACC has certainly changed the game a little bit with that, really, on the console. So it's a good thing that the SimGrid are branching out, and of course I'm glad that people are watching this and encouraged to join in. And why wouldn't you be, I suppose, looking at the racing we've had here today. So yeah, that is always good to see, and hopefully we can see some more stuff from those races in the near future on the SimGrid. But yeah, it's certainly in a good place right now, ACC, with the way it's going. I've seen new things being added all of the time as well, and yeah, it's a good sim to be on at this time. It's a very, very exciting place to be.
Yeah, it certainly is. To answer your question, Josh, they're in P21. The 486 of Girgos Sarosi is in P21. Just watching side-by-side action here between Raymond Mooney and Vyacheslav Abalati, and that's a bit wide for Abalati, left out to dry there, and yeah, that's not going to happen. Meanwhile, the battle for P3 and P4, just half a second now, Ewan.
Yeah, very close. Murphy's starting to apply the pressure more and more with every lap, really, and lap traffic may come into effect as well, looking at that Aston Martin just up in front of these guys here. Boopy's going to be looking in his rearview mirror almost as much as he's looking at the front end at this stage through the final corner. Murphy's going to struggle to get down the inside here unless he's very late on the brakes, but he's just going to have to keep applying that pressure. He's not got long to wait around for a mistake here, so he might have to force one at some point. Doesn't mean hit him out the way, of course, but you might have to just apply that pressure a little bit harder than he otherwise might, because time is running out here.
time is definitely running out. You're absolutely spot on with that one. 8 minutes left to go in the race. Maciek Malinowski still out by a country mile, 7 seconds to the good over Chris Hartfeld here, but we're curiously watching this battle here between George Boothby and Eamon Murphy. It's been brewing up quite nicely now for the past 5 laps, and it's now starting to come to a head as Eamon Murphy using that clutch pedal as a brake. Remember, he does have pedal failure. The brake load cell brake pedal has given up the ghost last time out, so he's having to jump into this race with not the best of setups going on. Is this absolute train right now? Felix Repair, Miskowski, Robbie Stapleford, Killian Ryan Meeran and Marco Bischoff all just, I mean, this is just a street fight going on right now. They're just knocking lumps out of each other here.
Yeah, they certainly are. They're big cars as well, goodness me. This poor Porsche is going to have a really tough time getting through on all these boys, I think, because it's quite a big roadblock, really, out front of everybody here, and everybody diving every which way as well. With only 7 minutes to go in the final race of the day, it's to be expected that the gloves are coming off now, and any position that you can see and try and grab is going to be taken at this stage. The Bentley, BMW, Aston Martin all involved, of course, into the chicane again, but not able to get through. Yeah, Schoffer's got his work cut out here, and of course this all stems back to Van Druten and his mistake about halfway through his stint in the first half of this race. Yeah, if he hadn't made that mistake, then Schoffer certainly wouldn't be in this situation right now.
It's that whole coulda, woulda, shoulda thing, isn't it? It's hindsight is a wonderful, wonderful thing, but you have to play the cards that you're given. And as we see Killian Ryan Meeran having a little look up the inside, Robbie Stapleford thinks better of it and pulls back in there. You're almost damned if you do and damned if you don't, aren't you? Because if you don't take the chances, then you're going to almost certainly find yourself falling back through the field. And if you do take the chances, then there's a significant probability that you're going to fail, or even worse, take someone else out with you and end up getting a penalty here. However, we'll come back to that in a second, because have a look at Eamon Murphy now. We've gone past that stage of where he's just examining George Boothby. He's now just really putting all the pressure onto George Boothby here, and this is an exemplary drive. If he is genuine, if he's being serious about using that clutch pedal, and we've got all hell kicking off going on with Robbie Stapleford behind him. That's Killian Ryan Meeran trying to get around the outside. We've got Bischoff in there as well. We've got Shimatinsky and Killian Ryan Meeran shown to the edge of the track. This is not going to end well, because this is going to be the chicane, and he's going to try and fire it up the inside, and there's contact predictably, and tries to keep the foot in. Does Marco Bischoff, shoves Killian Ryan Meeran out to the side again, and I think that is going to be done and dusted, because have a look at that. Killian Ryan Meeran now left vulnerable to Ivan Chermatinsky in that 81 behind him. Meanwhile, back to Eamon Murphy there, 0.7 of a second now, so that gap has gone up slightly, but Tortellini has just got complete control of this race. 4.5 minutes left to go, and that gap is over 8 seconds.
Yeah, it's no surprise really. If you remember Malinowski earlier on in this race, he was battling for second, in race 1 with Marco Bischoff, and now it's no surprise really to see this car flying in the second race as well, because they've got very good pace and taking home what looks like it's going to be a very well deserved race victory. But behind there are all kinds of battles going on. We saw the kind of early moments of a bit of an issue for Murphy into the chicane last time around. He looks like he's recovered, and he's on the back of Boothby all over again very quickly indeed. And of course that battle a little bit further down is getting very physical now for what is 12th place, but Murphy is doing a very good job right now battling against the clutch pedal for the remainder of this race. Doesn't look like he's taken much time to get used to it, or really been affected by it very much either.
It's frustrating to say the least, as an average to slow sim racer, watching somebody have a technical problem and still crank out the lap times that Eamon Murphy does, it makes me incredibly jealous of his ability. But Veloci Esports in that McLaren 720S, they're going to be very, very happy with the performance from that number 28 team, including James Baldwin. Let's not forget James' work to get all the way through from a very lowly position on the grid, and that is sent from the moon by Raymond Mooney. See what I did there? Sven Hettich loses out in that for Primary Racing, and that was it's one of those moves in these wet conditions that you just feel, time slows down and you're just like, because you can see it coming a mile off. And yet it still happens. Back to this battle here though, 2 3/4 minutes left to go. I'll be honest, I think Boothby is looking good to take this 3rd position. I would expect Murphy to be a lot closer than this to be making the move stick with just 2.5 minutes left to go, and realistically 2 laps left in this race.
Yes, there are. I believe we are on the penultimate lap right now, but traffic just up in front of these guys can't be helpful for them at all. I don't know where these guys are in the overall order, but they are certainly going to be in the way over the next couple of laps for Boothby, and it's going to allow Murphy to get involved. It really does depend on how this traffic is taken on by these two, because it could very well advantage either one of them, or neither, to be honest. But either way, it is going to arguably define this battle. With only 1 lap to go after this one, the leader's just coming up towards the line right now. It's going to be close actually, whether it's 1 lap to go. 1 lap to go or 2. But either way, these guys have just got to race as if it's 1 lap, especially in the case of Murphy trying to get through on this Ferrari. Maybe try and use that little bit of traffic to make a move down here at turn 1.
Yeah, it's definitely only going to be 1 lap, I think, left. So we're going to start that last lap now, and they're going to be side by side with back marker, and Boothby's been caught napping with that there, and that allows Eamon Murphy to try and get the move done. A little bit of contact there, but that was never going to happen. A little nibble on the rear end of that Ferrari, and I can see the no claims bonus is going to be getting handed to Eamon Murphy after that little bit of contact there. It was a little bit naughty there on the Ferrari, but either way, a minute left to go. We've been enthralled with this little fight here. It's going to have to be a send now from Murphy. You've got to feel that, Ewan, that he's going to have to just make a lunge into one of the corners.
He certainly will, or indeed he'll just sit on what he's got here and take that 4th place, because that will be a very good result considering where they started, we believe anyway, in 30th or indeed worse in this race. Not entirely sure, but very far down. And considering where they've come from, to be in 4th place is a very good achievement, but they're not going to want to stop there. They are going to want to get this podium, you can be sure about that. And he's running out of time. I do believe this will be the final lap, and there are only 4 corners to go for Murphy.
Here we go then, round the penultimate corner then comes our race leader Maciej Malinowski through the Arie Luijendijk, blocked round the final corner, out of the final turn, and there's 5 seconds left to go. Surely this is going to be a checkered flag. No, there we go, we get 1 more lap then. Goodness, I thought that was going to be so tight, but it turns out that I hope he knows that there's 1 more lap, and he's not, he's not just touring round. Right, here we go then. So we've got another lap lane for this battle with Eamon Murphy and George Boothby. We are not going to be denied this final little fight between these two. This is going to be a proper fireworks going off between these two, and you can see the frustration start to come out, a little bit of the flash of the lights there from Eamon Murphy as he's trying to make his way round as well. It's been an exemplary performance so for Tortellini. Maciej Malinowski has just been in total charge of this race, but Ewan, you get the feeling that that extra lap makes all the difference.
Well, it might well do by the end of this. If Murphy gets through in this final lap, then it certainly will. But yeah, they've got to keep an arm behind as well here, because David Patil has managed to get himself involved. We've not really spoken about him at all, but that Bentley is very much involved in this fight for 3rd as well. Been silently putting in the lap times as these two have been battling, and so he's certainly involved. As Murphy very close coming towards turn 9, but Boothby was expecting that one. Kept on the inside line and defends the corner once again into turn 10. There might be an opening for Murphy, but time is once again running out.
There we go then, picture in picture. As you can see, your race leader then coming through the final corner for the final time. This is definitely it. You've got that battle for third place still going on, but it has been an exemplary performance for the 449 Yazheat Pirelli team. It's Mikhail Stasenko and Maciej Malinowski who take the win here for race number 2 at the Coach Dave Super Sprint. Chris Hartfeld is going to take second place, and it looks like George Boothby safe, secure. And what happened to that Bentley there? But Boothby takes third place, Eamon Murphy in fourth position, and then now that Bentley is gone. So David Pertile down in 7th place, so he's obviously had an issue. That means Vyacheslav Abladze takes 5th position, Raymond Moody in 6th, David Pertile in 7th, Chris Sever in 8th position, and then Maris Forcito in 9th, Nick Hubin in 10th. But I think that means that Raymond Mooney is going to drop down to about 8th place.
Yeah, it looks like 5-second penalty for him. Not entirely sure what that's for. But he certainly has got a penalty there, and he will drop down because of it. And by the way, saw in the background, Pertile, I believe it was turn 11 where he had his problems, and there was a bit of contact with some other cars as well. So it'd be interesting to see what happened there, if there's anything to investigate there as well, because they might well be in the very final corners of that race. But yeah, it's a shame for him. It was looking to hold out for that top 5 finish. Fortunately, misses out on it after dropping down the order into 7th on the last lap.
What a race though, Ewan. That was absolutely amazing, and so happy to see that it was finally a good result for the 449 Yazheat Pirelli team. Maciej Malinowski taking that race win along with Mikhail Statsenko. Amazing stuff. We'll wait a couple of minutes and get some drivers in to interview, but very fascinated to see how that all works out in terms of the standings afterwards. Really was just a brilliant event there. Looking forward to the rest of the rounds here in the championship as well. I'm going to be very interested to see what the drivers think of the remaining rounds here, Ewan, because obviously with races 3 and 4 done tonight, and then obviously next time we head out to Barcelona, then we've got Bathurst and Imola. If you could pick one of those 3 tracks, what would be your track to take?
Well, Bathurst, definitely. There's no question about it for me. I think it's the best circuit, certainly out of the remaining ones for racing on, even though it's very tricky. It's probably the best for racing on, really. And of course, as well, it's very challenging as well. But it's very difficult for people to overtake, especially at circuits like Imola and Barcelona. It's going to be very similar to this one, really, especially Imola. If it rains, we're going to see very difficult to overtaking. But people might start to get a bit more desperate if it's we're coming down to it in the championship by that point. So situation will be a little bit different to what it was here today.
Yeah, certainly will. Well, let's have a chat to our race 2 winners then. Mikhail Statsenko, Maciej Malinowski, aka Tortellini. Guys, well done. That was a fairly quiet second race there.
Well, yes, but it does bring big points. So it was also enjoyable, even though it was for sure from the outside it looked boring, but the car was great to drive. So it was great fun. ACC in the wet is always great. So yeah, just redemption for race 1, because we had a little contact there with the Porsche. It happens, it's racing, but we managed to bring it in P9 in the first race, so we were able to here deliver and show our true pace.
Yeah, the race was not boring from our point of view in any way, and just so we're clear, any race that you can win quite comfortably, that's never a bad thing. But I mean, how did you bounce back from that first race? And Mikhail, we'll come to you, because I mean that was a really difficult first race.
Yeah, it was. We just got unfortunate with the Porsche a bit, like. We couldn't do anything really. He caught an understeer and just touched the rear of our Mercedes. So you can't really overtake from the back on this track unless you have like a very good pace. like a big advantage. So yeah, we just had to try to deliver a top 10 and recover in the second race. Also was a good start in the second.
It was a fantastic start in the second race, and Masik, coming to that after that first race, what was the mood like between you two going into that second race? Were you determined to get a good result, or were you feeling quite frustrated?
Beginning, I was frustrated during race 1, but I had like half an hour when Misha was driving because I got out of the car. I had half an hour to calm down, and we obviously knew that there is space in the car. We literally had no practice in the wet, but fortunately we kinda knew what to do quickly to the car to make it at least comfortable, and it was comfortable to drive, especially in the race 2. So we know that if we just play our cards right, get the pressures right, because we didn't in race 1, which just made me super slow. That's why I had to defend from the Porsche. But in race 2, we hit the pressures good, we hit the perfect pit stop good. We just knew that if we play our cards right, we're gonna be up there and we can just bring it home. And of course, Misha got really good start. So immediately after turn 1, we knew, okay, now we just need to keep focus and bring it out, to be honest, because yeah, we had confidence in ourselves and in each other, let's say. So,
and just on that note, obviously we move away to Barcelona in a fortnight's time. What do you both think of that track, and is that one that's going to bring some strong points to you?
I don't know.
I think it's possible
No
to get the strong points because I mean, McLaren is strong, Porsche is strong, but Mercedes is also not that bad in Barcelona. So we will have to see.
Yeah, it depends what kind of also conditions we'll get, because we know that we're gonna definitely struggle there again with the tire wear. Fortunately, today it wasn't the case because Zandvoort is known for killing the tires, and we got actually both races in the wet. So actually, the tire wear was a factor because we saw George and Jardier in the race in the second race. They didn't change tires in their Ferrari, and they were struggling super hard. So the tire wear was there, but it wasn't extremely different between different manufacturers. And for example, Mercedes can just kill its front tires, especially on a track like that or Barcelona. So if you get really hot conditions, especially race 2, where we need to extend those tires and use them throughout 1 hour, that's gonna be difficult. But again, it's same for everyone. There's a lot of Mercs on the grid, and we just need to make sure that we're gonna score as high as possible and be possibly the top car within our manufacturer.
Well, guys, thank you so much for the insight. Congratulations on winning that second race, and best of luck for Barcelona in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you hopefully soon. Bye.
Bye.
There we go then. So, as we said, Maciek Malinowski then and Mikhail Statsenko, Ewan, a fantastic pair of races tonight. How was your little foray into Coach Dave's Super Sprint?
Yeah, it was good. I certainly enjoyed it. It's been a while since I've been on SimGrid as well, so I'm glad to be here once more.
I wondered if we hadn't heard from you for a while.
Yeah, it has been. It feels like it's been a long time. It might be like 2 months or something, which is not that long, really, is it? But it feels like it is at the moment. So yeah, I don't know. It's been too long anyway. So I'm glad to be here again. And yeah, as I said at the start, midweek sprint racing is, I think, it's a very good time for it. It produces very good racing, and yeah, we've seen that once again. We've got some teams really starting to get at each other, if you like, in terms of this championship overall. So those stories are going to continue to unravel over the next 3 rounds, and I'll be looking forward to seeing how they play out.
Yep, they certainly will. And the next time it plays out, 31st of March at Barcelona for another 2 1-hour races is when you can catch us. But what you're going to do is you're going to head over to simgrid.com right now and get yourself signed up for the CDA 1000. Qualifying is on until Monday. Get your team involved in this. It's going to be 5 rounds, 1,000 kilometre races, which turns out to be 6-hour races. I've been David Christie. Alongside me has been Ewan O'Leary. A huge thank you to Steve Proudley, our man with a plan in the broadcast production suite. tonight. And a huge thank you, as always, to Michael Hamlet for whispering sweet nothings into our ear. On behalf of everyone here at the SimGrid, have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next time.